We gotta talk about one of the most insane records on that project, though. The song with DMX.
It was the last feature verse that DMX ever laid.
You talked about, your drug use on the tour. Has that ever scared you?
It's never been more important to do safe drugs if you're gonna do drugs.
Oh, you did a shoey in Australia.
I don't know, have I ever told this story in a public forum? They start chanting "shoey" while I'm on stage. I was past a shoe. This was no normal shoe. And then I'm holding it, I went to give it back. They're like, no, you! There's, Mac Miller's on that project,
I wanted
rest
to
in
talk
peace.
to you about Mac, yeah.
Yeah, there was a strained relationship between me and him.
I want to bring it to Web Sesh.
I convinced Pete Davidson to co-host this thing with me. There's certain lines from the Web Sesh that I still get stuck in my head. It's so taxing to be touring, dropping music, having to constantly be shooting videos for the music, and just always be dropping every 2 weeks, and then drop an album with a merch package, all this. But I need to step away from feeling like I have to be dropping music at all times to be happy, because that's not healthy either.
Welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast. I'm your host, Mike Squires. Today I'm joined by my good friend, Chris Webby. Chris and my friendship goes back over a decade, so it's only right that I do a podcast that covers his entire career. This is going to be a long episode, so get comfortable. Chris and I talked about the beginning of his career and his personal life, his initial mixtapes that kicked off his career in the first place, collaborations with artists like Mac Miller, working out of T.I.'s studio sessions with Scott Storch, and touring with the independent juggernaut Tech N9ne. Webb and I spoke about when he took control of his business, starting with building back up with Webster's Lab 2, into his Wednesday album series, which features artists like DMX, Busta Rhymes, Jelly Roll, and so many more. We also spoke about moments in Chris's career, such as performing at Red Rocks, hosting a live stream with Pete Davidson, which featured the likes of MGK, Bob Saget, Gilbert Gottfried, Gary Busey, and so many more. Currently, Webby is winding down his Wednesday series and planning on ending it with a bang, so we talk about what's next for him. You can support the Mike Squires and Friends podcast by subscribing on YouTube or downloading on your preferred podcast platform. Definitely go do those things because it helps me a lot. I got great news, guys. I finally have some really dope merch. I have a pizza delivery shirt based on my song Crazy with Chris Webby that I'm really excited to release. I'm gonna throw the photos of the front and back. I'm wearing one right now. But yeah, it's because, me and Chris have our song represent Connecticut in the 50 States project. And also Connecticut has the best pizza. There's no doubt about that. So if you want to get one, you can get one at lifeismerch.com. And back to the podcast. But now I get to talk about our sponsor. Where is our? And I can't talk about my sponsor without Little Buddy. The Mike Squires and Friends podcast is proudly sponsored by DistroKid. Looking to broaden your musical horizons as an artist? Discover DistroKid. With its smooth and rewarding music distribution platform, DistroKid offers unlimited uploads while ensuring artists retain 100% of their royalties and earnings. Join the community of over 1 million artists who trust DistroKid to distribute their music across platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, and Instagram. Having personally used DistroKid since 2018, I can attest to its superiority amongst distribution services. Collaborating with fellow artists has become effortless, especially with the ability to send splits of songs. With the DistroKid app, accessing these benefits is now more convenient than ever. Safely sign up or log in with two-factor authentication, upload releases on the fly, monitor earnings, or withdraw funds from your DistroKid bank. Stay updated on royalties through push notifications, effortlessly share hyperfollow links, manage account details seamlessly, and track streaming stats from Spotify and Apple. Additionally, explore Mixia for professional-grade mastering, DistroVid for music video distribution, and Instant Share for secure file sharing amongst collaborators, producers, and more. The DistroKid app is available on both iOS and Android. Download it today from the App Store or Google Play Store to revolutionize your music career. And I know there's a ton of independent artists listening to this, so make sure you visit distrokid.com/VIP/Mike Squires to get 30% off your first year membership. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mike Squires and Friends. Webb, welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast.
How you doing, Squires?
It's been a highly requested episode.
Here we are.
I know. My DMs every day. When's Chris Webby coming on?
Well, alas, the time has come, and here we are for the people. I think this is going to be a very interesting podcast. Our dynamic alone.
It's going to be fun, dude.
Yes, it's been described as Rick and Morty-esque. It'd be pretty common for Squires to say something and me just say, "Shut up, Squires," and then that's the normal way we interact. So,
Web, can you come on the podcast?
yeah, it'll translate into this overall conversation. I would hope, at least,
Yeah, dude, I got my questions, dude.
Well, let me see.
No, you can't look.
I can't read upside down, anyways.
Yeah, but so you started writing raps in the year 2000, around age 11.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So what did the first 11 years look like?
Well, it was a lot of like rapping in the lunch line. I wrote a song for like a language arts project about a book that we had to give a report on. A lot of stuff like that. But it's interesting and delusional to think about really at the time. But from the moment I really discovered hip hop in about 5th grade, because I was raised on rock, classic rock. My parents are in their 70s, so I was raised on a lot of that type of music, reggae, soul, good stuff, stuff that I found myself going back and listening to more now at this age. But when I discovered hip hop around 5th or 6th grade, immediately I was like, this is what I want to do. So I just started doing it in whatever way I thought I was able to. I knew nothing. I knew nothing for a very long time from that point forward. It took me many, many years to learn anything at all. But slowly but surely, I guess I developed a skill set. I was horrible at first, though, no doubt about it. But I thought I was good, and I was just dead set on that being the goal.
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit about your personal life, too, around then. Can you tell me about your monster list?
My monster list. The Power Rangers monster list?
Correct.
I'm a very like OCD kind of person, especially when it comes to collecting things or listing things. My entire career is listed in my phone right now. I run off of a list. And what I was doing before I came here was hanging up my retro Ninja Turtles in the box that I've been recollecting and putting them in order of the generations that they came out in. I'm weird like that. And I was as a child as well. When Power Rangers was big, it was a little before your time. Power Rangers was a big deal. And for some reason, I was like obsessed with the bad guys. They were so interesting and cool, and there was a new one every episode. So I made my parents write down the villain of every episode on a piece of paper, and obsessively, very obsessely. I would get angry if it wasn't done. I was a terror for sure. I mean, that transcended later in a similar mindset to Freestyle Friday on 106 in Park. It was a freestyle battle. They would have every...
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah. It's, very similar mindset. I would tape it every single week on an old VHS. And when I wasn't home, if I was on vacation, I would have my cousin do it. And it was... I have probably more Freestyle Friday battles recorded on VHS than BET does.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
Can I talk to you a little bit about Fossils of the Future?
When you're a kid, man, you talked to my parents, huh?
I called your mom, yeah.
Yeah. You would.
I had to, dude.
The whole way I know this kid is from him, and then I'll get to Fossils of the Future. This pest, he's 15 years old, hanging out around Chris Webby shows and trying to get in any way he could, a skill, that he's used later in life to succeed in many things.
Yes.
But I remember my mom saying, you should let that Mike Squires do a music video for you. And I was like, Mom, he's like 15 years old. Absolutely not. And I always remember that all these years later. Here we are sitting and talking.
And I would do some with your dad too, even before I shot music videos for you.
You did. Yep.
Yeah.
You get where you need to get. Now, Fossils of the Future was, oh my God. So I was afraid of some weird shit when I was a kid. Like the song Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles was my biggest fear as a child.
That is a very strange fear, Web.
I don't think I've ever met anyone who was like afraid of a song, especially someone who would grow to be a musician. Fossils of the Future was like a dinosaur book. That's not even what it was called. I forget what it was called.
Yeah.
But the last page it said Fossils of the Future. And there was a T-Rex skull and like kind of skeleton on it. And for some reason that scared me. And my dad had to keep that book on like the top shelf of his closet. And I was terrified. I would look in his closet and I'd be like, oh, Fossils of the Future's up there. Very, very, very bizarre shit. And mind you, if I talk with a lisp at all, I had dental surgery recently. So for all the viewers at home, also one of my front teeth is a little shorter than the other ones because I have a temporary in there. It was a whole thing. Had to get an implant, the past week. It was, it's not fun. Dental
chaotic,
stuff is
dude.
not fun. Oh my God. Drilling a screw into your head and...
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, just to get that out of the way, if he's like, he sounds like he has a lisp, but yeah, like maybe a little bit, all right? Leave me alone.
Yeah, well, speaking of dentists and doctors, can we talk about Dr. Shield?
Wow. This is a story that I guarantee you my school wouldn't want me to tell. Now, when I was in 7th grade, I'm going to tell it anyways because that's what I do. When I was in 7th grade, I got a scholarship to Greens Farms Academy, which is an incredible school, and I was a bright kid. So they accepted me as a student on scholarship because it's a very expensive school. And that's where I went from 7th grade until I graduated. And overall, I would say it was a great experience. It was definitely a bit of a culture shock coming from public school, but very good education. I would say I've put a good amount of what I learned to use from that school. But it's very upscale, rich people shit. You know what I mean? And I was friends with a lot of rich kids through that, and that was kind of, not that I didn't know people with money, but it was kind of different there, I grew up in Norwalk. Norwalk is very economically diverse. So going to Norwalk Public School, you're around everybody. But GFA was different, and it was a very small school. It goes from first grade or kindergarten to senior year, and my graduating class was 60 people. So my senior year, a teacher was hired named Dr. Shields at this very prestigious school. Now, I don't want to speak poorly of the school because I had a great experience at Greens Farms, but they definitely fucked this one up. This man had faked his identity off of an author of a book that we, as the students, down the line, were able to discover by finding a book that the real Dr. Shields wrote and looking at the inside cover and saying, that's not Dr. Shields.
The About an Author page?
Yes. He faked an identity, was very creepy, especially when you factor that in. And he wanted to coach wrestling, like assistant coach wrestling, which is
Not where you'd want to creep.
Not where you want a guy who's faking their identity, because wrestling, I wrestled in high school and I got pretty good. And you touch other guys, but there's nothing weird about it.
It's a contact sport.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't think about it like that. You're wearing spandex, but you're also trying to kill each other. It's not a
I get what you're saying.
Gay experience, really. There's really nothing like that. People who see it from the outside kind of see it that way. It's actually, in my opinion, the most badass sport. But having this guy around that, it's like, that's... So I don't know whatever amounted to it, but I do know that he went bye-bye and there was... It was hushed. It was definitely hushed. And then I was voted to give the class day speech, which is a speech given at the end of the year by the student voted on by their peers. So, I was given a speech kind of like the valedictorian gives a speech, but I was voted by everyone else in the class to speak on their behalf. That was pertinent news that year. I was told not to say anything about it. And I declined that request. And then they were like, no, seriously, don't say anything about it. And I was like, yeah, all right. And of course, I went up there and said something about it because that's what I still do to this day.
Yeah.
Talk about shit that I'm not supposed to talk about, that people want to sweep under the rug. I don't like people sweeping shit under the rug. I think everyone should, be accountable for their mistakes. And I've been very vocal about politics and people who are scumbags in general. Like, I have no problem speaking on these things. I can't hold my tongue, if we're being honest. You know,
That's fair, dude.
I'm an open book. I just go. And if I don't like someone and I think they're, I'll say what I feel. And I had a job to do that day, and yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to transition it starting into music, right?
Right.
But, kind of a blend. You were voted class rapper.
Yeah. Again, I was in a class of 60 people, so...
Yeah, dude.
But yes, I was a rapper. My whole middle school and especially high school, I had the old school headphones around my neck at all times, plugged into my iPod. Before that, my actual CD player.
Yeah.
Constantly had the headphones around my neck, and it was just a part of who I was, and still am to this day. It's been my identity. So class rapper, yeah.
We got to talk Suburban Commando Volume 1 and 2, right? The Vindictive Days.
Yeah. I don't know why my rap name was Vindictive in high school. If my name was like Vinny or something, I guess that would have made sense. But it wasn't. I have no idea. Everybody called me Webby, but I felt like I had to have some cool underground rap name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to make old, really shitty sounding mixtapes that I would bring to school in a shoebox and sell for $5. And I made a few of those. There's probably a couple kicking around in random shoeboxes.
The business?
Yeah, man. Oh my God. I have trouble going back and listening to early mixtapes that are publicly out there.
Yeah.
I would not want to hear that. But it's everybody starts somewhere. But man, it was bad because you also got to factor in technology was nowhere near where it is today. So it's it sounds really bad. And my rapping was bad, and I didn't know who I was yet. And that's a big part of being a rapper. And that's something that I feel like took me a really long time, even publicly, to figure out really who I am. You know what I mean? I knew parts of myself, but it took me to really become a grown man to accept myself, honestly.
Yeah, and when you were Vindictive, is that when you were battle rapping?
At parties and shit like that, yeah. I mean, I was freestyling constantly. Every party, every house party, it was time for Webby to do his freestyle, and we throw on a beat, and that I was good at.
Yeah.
That I was very good at. I didn't have the music making down because that's a very different process, but man, I could freestyle, and I took that into college with me, and you pretty much couldn't get me to shut up. I would go for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, or I would 5 beats in a row. It was just a thing, and everyone really enjoyed it. I would talk about what was going on, and it was dope. It wasn't like when a rapper's just in your ear, yo, check this out. It was like a community thing. It's time for Webby to rap, and and I would do it, and I would entertain everyone, and go back to drinking. And
is it true that you punched somebody in the face after a rap battle, though?
Yes. There was. I learned through an experience. I used to battle people on the spot, where it was kind of just who had more skills, and maybe you say a little bit about them, but I had yet to really understand this dynamic of what the modern day battle rap is, where it's a cappella and it's researched, studied, rehearsed. I was like a freestyler. So when I went up against this kid who knew how it's done, and I go in there yeah, I'll just freestyle, and then when I found out it's a cappella, I'm just but I always went over a beat. It's what does that mean? That's slam poetry. That's not really what I do. And I lost, and I lost in front of a lot of people, man. And it was really embarrassing. It was 2 times. One time was behind a CVS parking lot, and I lost. His friends were there. My friends were there. It was super embarrassing. Super embarrassing. That was in high school. And then in college, I think when I was like a freshman, we scheduled a rematch because I started having a few things going on, and it's like outside of this battle sphere that I wasn't really a part of, you know, I still was moving and shaking. The rematch went horribly. Like, I just straight B-rabbited nothing. I tried to memorize some shit, and I fucked up. And then to just watch him kind of give a victory speech into the camera they had, I was like, man, fuck this. And I just went over and punched him in the face. Only time I've ever punched someone in the face. Also worth acknowledging, like, 15 minutes later after I cooled off, I walked over to him and was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. Like, that was super out of character. I didn't mean to punch you in the face. I was just really embarrassed and, you know, like, really upset with myself. And then I went on a whole drug bender after that and, like, really had to learn something about myself there. And I've had a few career moments like that where, as inconsequential as it may seem telling the story, like, in the moment, that was everything. And to have that just blow up in my face made it seem like maybe this all was going to fall apart, you know? And I don't know, I took it really hard, both times. And what I kind of walked away from ultimately was, hey man, like, you're just not a battle rapper. Like, I loved watching Freestyle Friday. I love battle rap. I watch King of the Dot. You know, I watch a lot of these battles, and these guys are a different breed. They specialize in a certain type of thing, and making music is where my heart took me, you know? So it's like, you gotta let people have their specialties, and you gotta know what yours are. And I learned from that moment, like, I'm not a battle rapper. Like, I'll go diss track. Like, you know, if you put the control in my hands, but on the spot, I got to memorize like 5 minutes of bars and spit them a cappella. Like, I couldn't do that now if I wanted to. You know?
Yeah, dude. So this is around the time you were in college.
Yeah.
So then you got kicked out of school.
Sure did.
Yeah. And
cover that on the other podcast.
That's what I was saying. You guys can go watch the Locked In with Ian Big podcast to hear the story of Web getting kicked out. But then from when you get kicked out, at what point do you make the White Noise LP?
So the White Noise LP was pretty much made by the time I got kicked out, because I lived in a frat house with John Kilmer, who went on to do a lot of video work for Mike Stud, and we lived in the same frat house, and he had a studio set up downstairs, and I credit him to this day. You know, I was a really, like, lost kid at that point. I was just doing a lot of drugs. I was in college. I didn't really know why I was in college. And he had this studio set up, and he gave me an outlet to pursue what I really wanted to do, and something to focus on that was positive in a time in my life where I was really just a mess, you know. And not that I haven't been, you know, there's a lot of different chapters at this point of my life, but this point in particular, I was just a mess. And most of the project had been done. Then I got kicked out of school and everything. I mean, like, my whole life got turned upside down there. And I realized, like, I have to do this now. Like, I always knew I wanted to do this. This was always the plan to do this. But I was also in college, so it was like, maybe I could do something else, worst case. And then I wasn't in college anymore. And especially at that time, it was like, you go to college, you get a job. It's already different than that now. College is a scam. But at that time, it seemed like, you know, everything was over, and I had most of the White Noise recorded, and that was kind of like my Hail Mary. And I didn't even know how to put it on Datpiff. I'm still technologically very unadvanced, as you know. But we got it up there, and for some reason, you know, it just gained a little bit of traction. Me with that dumb ear flaps hat. And it got a lot of downloads. And La 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 was on it. I want
to talk to you about La La La, dude.
Yeah, La 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 was on it. That was the first song on it. That was a very smart decision on my part to put that song first, because that ended up being kind of my first
breakout record.
Yeah, it's not a hit by any means, but definitely a breakout record. Yeah, for sure. I mean, people still to this day, you know, you listen back to it, it sounds horrible in comparison to the quality of what I make now. But
what's that moment feel like though when La 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 is starting to go crazy and you're seeing this for the first time?
Well, it was like that was the MySpace era too. So you're seeing the numbers tick up on all of these different platforms. And I don't know, man. I mean, it was a long time ago. It was kind of a whirlwind. And on top of that, I was dealing with going to court and not knowing if I'm going to jail. You know, I had so much going on. I'm living back at my parents' house. I had just been in college. Everything was just all scrambled up. It was like what my life was and then just put in a blender and scrambled up. And then, you know, that project came out and I dropped another one and another one and another one, another one, another one.
You just kept
and
going.
Another one, I think. It was like 7 mixtapes. A lot changed over the course of those, but 7 mixtapes in a row over the course of like 4 or 5 years.
I kind of want to run through them and like maybe tell me kind of like where your life is or just like the first thing you remember.
That's honestly, that's how I kind of remember my life and the different chapters of my life is by the projects.
Albums.
Believe it or not. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so let's talk Teenage Mutant Ninja Rapper.
That is, in my opinion, the absolute worst project I have ever created. I refuse. I won't, like, I reprinted a lot of my mixtapes because I think it's cool, you know, even if an artist often, you know, has an issue with their early work and they don't like their early work. But that project is bad, in my opinion. I can't stand to listen to it. And it was during a crazy time where White Noise I had spent a lot of time on. That was like, I spent like probably a year and a half, 2 years kind of accumulating these records. That album, I'm just trying to like, oh, let's do another one. You know, I was in a hurry and you can tell.
Yeah, but I think there's still value in getting something out too, because I think even though you may not love that album, I'm sure that album resonates with a lot of people.
Some people say, you know, we were using a lot of auto-tune because it was like when Lil Wayne was using a lot of auto-tune, so we were doing that. The way I was rapping, just like this over-pronunciation thing, it's just like, man, I can't fucking stand that shit. But hey, man, it's part of my history and it's part of my story, so ultimately, you know, you have to accept yourself for what you are and your history. So it's part of history. You can also
see your growth as an artist throughout.
Yeah,
you know?
Not necessarily from that one, but yeah.
Well, let's talk Optimus Rhyme.
That one was just a collection of various songs that I dropped on YouTube over industry beats that someone else made, and they made that stupid cover for it where I'm showing the Transformers logo. I hate that goddamn picture. That picture's haunted me forever. From my first fucking photo shoot when I was like, that had to have been like 2008. First time I had like ever photo shoot. Still to this day, I'll see a random article and they use that picture. I can't, like, fuck that picture, bro. I look like such a little tool bag.
So that wasn't an official mixtape, or it was? Or
well, then I, like, adopted it because people liked it. So I was like, yeah, and I just dropped Optimus Rhyme. But technically, some other guy dropped Optimus Rhyme. I just was like, yeah, I did make all the records. So,
yeah.
But, like, no, that wasn't, like, an official release. But I rocked with it.
That's crazy. So some random dude basically, like, A&R'd a mixtape for you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Then let's go to Underclassmen.
Yeah, that one had a lot more time spent on it. I recall that time in life being a little more structured, kind of. I mean, I had a manager at that point, a manager after a really bad manager that I had during the Optimus Rhyme era that was bad.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's just like, you got to be careful in this industry when you're green and you just like, it's your dream. So you can end up around people who exploit that and totally mental manipulation and fear tactics and all this bullshit. This guy was not a good guy, you know? I don't even want to say his name, like Beetlejuice type shit, you know what I'm saying?
Have to.
But, I don't even want to speak him into existence.
Yeah,
you know?
Respect.
But, you know, we're well past that. But thinking back, it's just like that really put like a damper on that time period and like messed up a lot of relationships and ultimately brought a new manager into the picture in the form of Dana, who was my manager for a long time. And me and him at a point were like, yo, let's get away from this dude and, you know, do our own thing. And such it was for quite a while from that point. So Underclassmen, I mean, that was like, we're using weed money, you know, from slinging weed. I was not doing the slinging at that point because I was on probation. So, but weed money was being put into studio time, you know, and that's when you really had to go to like a nice studio to record things. It wasn't like now, you know, now you don't need that much. But we started taking it serious, started getting some features, you know, Mac Miller's on that project.
I wanted
rest
to
in
talk
peace.
to you about Mac. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the process of like that song? How did I Need a Dollar come together?
I reached out to him, and at the time I was bigger, you know, because we had kind of caught this buzz. It didn't stay that way for very long. I mean, Mac Miller blew the fuck up, but like at that point, I was technically bigger, even though I was broke as hell. I was broke through like a humongous portion of my career because we're making mixtapes that don't equate to money. So it's really just like the only money I'm making is on the road. But yeah, I just reached out, and I would say that there was a strained relationship later on between me and him. And I think that's really just circumstantial of the era. White rappers did not like each other back then. We all grew up being like the one of one where we were from, and we had to fight extra hard because of that. And then when we didn't play nice together, myself included, and I've really worked hard to not see the world like that. This new generation is totally different. We grew up in the shadow of Eminem, and it was very, there was always more expected of us lyrically, you know, because we had to match up to the unmatchable. Eminem at that point was, you know, arguably the best. So
you did a show with Mac at the ATS Auditorium.
Yeah, is that what I have a lanyard from that still.
You do, yeah. Mm-hmm. How was that show?
I don't think we spoke that much. And honestly, after that time period, I don't know if something happened between one of my guys, like potentially that bad manager or someone who was around. I don't know if someone said something to rock the boat there. I really don't know, but there was definitely a tension. And I'm really bummed out that later in life, as grown men, we weren't able to kind of bury the hatchet. Not that there was beef, you know what I mean? It just it was tense. And it was definitely due. I just hadn't seen him. We hadn't run into each other in a long time. But I would have really liked to just be like, hey, man, just so you know, everything's cool, man. I'm proud of what you've done. He grew as an artist so much, you know, and really became great. So, you know, that'll bum me out. Rest in peace, Mac. But that was also a cornerstone of that time period, you know? And to this day, I still perform that song sometimes. And, you know, we'll pour one out for him. We got let his verse rock while I'm on stage. You've seen.
Yeah, I have, dude. Yeah, I want to keep it going with the mixtapes though.
All right, so Underclassmen, what's next? Best in the Burbs,
and
right?
I want to talk to you about Crashing Datpiff, and I need you to explain what Datpiff is for people.
All right, yes. So here's where we start seeing more success, more momentum. There was that initial blip, and we were kind of riding off of that from the beginning. And then at this point, something had accumulated. And even though a lot of people weren't recognizing it, this forced a lot of people to. Now, Datpiff was a mixtape website, for those of you who don't know, which means you're young, because if you're my age, everybody knows what Datpiff was. There was an era where it was either iTunes or Datpiff. It was either albums or mixtapes. And mixtapes were born mostly by artists who were locked into label deals and couldn't put an album out, so they gave music away for free. So that was the birth of the mixtape. Then mixtapes just got hot, so everybody's making mixtapes, whether they were locked in a label deal or not. Obviously, I wasn't, but we were still making mixtapes. It became this huge platform. So huge, you know, Cushion OJ, No Ceilings, and The Drought, all of that was exclusively on Datpiff for the most part, unless you downloaded it pirated it somewhere else, but it was free. I don't know why would you do that anyways. But when Best in the Burbs came out, it shut the entire website down because of so many people trying to download it at once. I was the first person to crash Datpiff. Still an accolade that I'm very proud to say. Still something I say, even if no one even knows what I'm talking about. You know, some of these younger kids, they're like, what? He crashed a what? But it was a big deal. And from that point forward, other people crashed Datpiff. I crashed Datpiff another 2 or 3 times. But that first time, man, no one ever crashed it like that before. Because the owner, KP, shout out to him, good dude. He really looked out for me. He called me and was like, my entire website is not only down, I have someone calling me right now saying it was like hacked or asking if it was hacked or if they had gotten a virus, but it was just from so much traffic flooding at one moment that it didn't just go down for a little bit. He had to restructure his entire website because it like exploded, basically. I don't know the technicality of it, but I basically like blew his website to pieces and he had to get like a new platform from that point forward. So it was never able to crash to the same extent because it was down for hours.
Yeah. And you started getting some insane features around this time where you got Big Crit on that project.
Yeah, that was super dope. Yeah. And he produced that song too.
Oh, amazing. How'd that come together?
We just knew Johnny Shipes and he worked with Crit and made it happen. I don't really remember the specifics, but I remember Crit being super cool.
Yeah, and I had Fury on recently, so I learned that Dana interned for Johnny.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Yep.
And then let's just move it over to Webster's Lab.
Right. Webster's Lab was next. Webster's Lab was that one was special in its own way because it feels like such a mixtape. Honestly, Best in the Burbs kind of feels like an album. It was just free. Webster's Lab was a classic mixtape. It just was like mad industry beats, but some original songs. And it was a whole experience front to back. A lot of people really liked that project. That crashed Datpiff as well. The cover, super dope.
Yeah, dude. That's where I tapped in with you.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That was, where were we, 2011 now, right?
Yeah. So I was a young kid in high school remembering that project coming out, dude.
Yeah.
And then from there,
that was the dawn of really like touring. Like we did a small tour after Best in the Burbs, a little bit of localized Northeast shit. But after Webster's Lab, we did like a whole tour. And that was the first time I had seen most of this country.
How was that feeling, dude?
It was wild. It was super wild. And, performing, obviously, something I've been doing forever. But right around the Webster's Lab time is when I really start touring. And I learned a lot through that. Performing is like a whole nother thing. There's like writing songs. There's, being the rapper in general, like being on camera, shit like that. Performing is its own unique animal. And I always had charisma, but I've definitely tightened it up a lot since then. And I have no idea how many shows I've done, but I would say probably in the realm of like, how many shows do you think I've done?
Thousands, right? It has to. Or maybe like getting up there. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, it's easy to say thousands, but like then when you really break it down, like that's a lot.
But you've also been in the game for a hot second, dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like probably like 1,000 like shows. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah,
not a clue.
We're gonna talk about touring and everything.
Yeah. But that was the dawn of it. Touring, and so now I'm starting to see the desert and the mountains, and it's just like, whoa, man, this is crazy that music is taking me. Those were some really fun years. I recall Best in the Burbs and Webster's Lab specifically as being a really fun time because everybody in the crew, we're all young, we're just all experiencing these things for the first time. And it was super exciting. Everything was positive. We weren't really thinking about the other shoe dropping business-wise down the line a good bit. We were just out there living and experiencing and being wild.
Do you have a
obviously.
memory from that tour you can share?
Man, they all blend together. I know there was a lot of pranking that went on. I actually had to put an end to the prank war because it lasted over many tours, and it was starting to get crazy.
Do you recall any of the pranks?
Yeah, I can recall some of the pranks. Farley got it pretty good with some baby powder while he was sleeping.
Oh no!
We drew all of my tattoos on him.
Insane, dude.
Yeah. I've never seen him drunk since.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
It's probably because of that, dude.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think. Sorry about that, Farley. Another time, Bill, who was tour manager at the time, great guy, but he passed out. This is on the next run. This is on the one where we had the bus and spent more money than God having a bus because we thought that's what we were supposed to do, and then it was like, oh my God, we can't afford this. But Bill fell asleep on the bus. And I colored his whole stomach in with a red Sharpie like Hellboy.
Insane.
It took him days, And it was unfair because people couldn't really fuck with me that much because I had to go on stage. Like, I couldn't look crazy. You couldn't Sharpie my face. Like, I had to go on stage.
Immunity, dude.
Yeah, and I took advantage of that immunity. And to everyone who was on tour with me during the prank wars, I apologize. But it was pretty funny,
Yeah.
There was some funny. I did get pranked, but there was certain bounds. You couldn't fuck with my appearance.
Yeah.
And that was yeah.
Let's go to There Goes the Neighborhood, dude.
There Goes the Neighborhood was the first project that generated income.
Let's go, dude.
iTunes. Yeah, dude.
Go.
Money. Something that we were not as familiar with. And yeah, I think number one on iTunes, crushed it. It's a EP, but it was like the first official release, and it's dates the furthest back on Spotify and all these streaming services because the mixtapes aren't up. And that was cool. But people don't realize, man, streaming is such a good thing. Even then, it's like someone buys your project, but that's just once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was different. It was different. I don't know.
Yeah, but also one thing we could just talk on real quick is that you gave out so many projects before you even put out your first paid one.
Yeah.
And by the time you put out your first paid one, you had a fan base there.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Can we just quickly talk on paying your dues, and not maybe prioritizing the money and just prioritizing, becoming better?
I still don't prioritize the money. I have control over the money. I know where the money's going, but it's never the root cause for me doing anything. It's essential. It's the lifeblood of the business, but you know me, I'm all about doing the right thing or the best thing or the coolest thing. So, what was the question?
Just basically how, I don't even remember. I was going to say how you put in a lot of work for free before you got paid.
Right, paying dues. That's right.
Yeah.
I can be hard on younger artists sometimes, judging them, because the game's different now. My generation had to pay a ridiculous amount of dues, especially for there's the paying dues to build a fan base, and then there's the paying dues in hip hop to be respected by hip hop, which that was an expectation that I could just never meet being a white kid from Connecticut. The rest of the world sees Connecticut a certain type of way. And, trying to win people over and trying to please everyone is no way to live life. So at the same time, I will say that paying dues is important, and people like to skip that step a lot these days, and it affects their overall success in the long run, I would say, because when you pay your dues, by the time you finally get there, you have a much better understanding of what's going on and how to handle it. I think I was talking to my girlfriend about it yesterday. Also, shout out to her and Dr. Alex. They did my dental work, so I just want to say thank you. They did a very good job. She was the assistant on the surgery.
Oh, amazing, dude.
Yeah. And I was just telling her, I'm so thankful that I didn't blow all the way up when I was young, because I think that would have gone horribly. And you see it with child actors, that Nickelodeon documentary that just came out. I mean, you see it everywhere. When you're young, you just don't know what to do with the attention, with the money. And it would have been a disaster. I had some of both.
And especially when you're like that green too and like new in the game, like people can take advantage of you just because you don't know better.
Absolutely. And, I was partying a lot. I was doing a lot of drugs. It would have gone bad. It was a recipe for disaster. So the slow, steady route ended up being definitely the safest and best route for me.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about a random experience that I saw.
Okay.
You were kicking it with Porter Robinson?
Oh yeah, he's an
electronic artist. Yeah, very dope.
Yeah, where the hell was that? Yeah, he was a nice kid. I remember that.
Yeah, dude.
But I don't. It's like I do and I don't. That was at a college, was it?
2012.
Yeah, at a college.
I assume so.
Yeah, shout out to him. Hope he's been good since that one time I met him in 2012. He was yeah.
Yeah, no, he's gone on. He's dropped incredible music, but I'm going to keep it pushing, dude. Let's talk Toad's Place. So when you get your name on the Toad's Place wall?
Well, Toad's Place was... My yearly show at Toad's Place started in 2010. It was the first time that my manager at the time, he booked the show as the promoter. So we kind of doubled up on the money and we got it all in cash. And I remember that first Toad's Place Black Friday, we walked out of there. I had in my hand the most money I had ever held in my life. It was like $10,000. And it was a great feeling. The show was awesome for its era. And we kept doing it every year since then. And now we've done 14 Black Friday shows, I believe. Right? For 13? Yeah. 13. 2020, whatever happened there,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of shows, man. Black Friday's just, I associate that with that whole season now. It's like Thanksgiving, I'm very low key. Everyone, Thanksgiving Eve, everyone goes out. I don't, because I know I have Toad's Place coming up. It's just ingrained into my consciousness at this point. And it's a great show every year. It's a lot for me because it's a hometown show. So there's a lot of responding to texts and making sure this one's good, that one's good. Everybody they get the wristbands and, but it's a really cool, it's a cool experience. And if you're going to come see any show of mine as a big fan, obviously that one is particularly special. Doing anything for 13 years in a row is pretty impressive, I would say.
Yeah, dude, the consistency. I mean, that's one thing that I'll just say right now from everything that I was looking at, I don't know anyone more consistent, dog.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Some people call it, I can be, especially as I've gotten older, what I would consider boring almost, because I used to just be so wild and, active. And now I'm kind of just, chilling, trying to make music, living in my house in the woods. But it's important to upkeep tradition and be consistent. And to be consistent, you have to be kind of responsible, But yeah, we're going into the 10th annual Denver show also.
Insane, dude. Yeah.
And then we've done Halloween in Minneapolis a good 9 years in a row. Yeah, a lot of tradition shows, which immediately starts carving up my schedule every year. It's just that can be a little hectic, but.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about a story.
Okay.
You met with Blueprint Management at South by Southwest in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah. I don't know who that is, but I am assuming it's the story that I'm thinking of. It's the guys, they're a big deal, right?
Yeah, well, you were ignoring them.
Well, I wasn't ignoring them. Really, it comes down to we were taking a meeting with these people who were very powerful. I believe they managed Lil Wayne, right?
That sounds about right.
Some others who were very big. And Dana and Fury were very excited about this because, this is this could be the meeting that changes everything. And I went in there, I was drunk. We were at South by Southwest, whatever, I took the meeting. But then Michael K. Williams, Omar from The Wire, walks in, and I'm a huge Wire fan. So I basically cut them short mid-sentence, and I said, "I'm sorry, fellas, Omar's here. I gotta go get a pic. You know, I gotta go talk to him. That's more important than this." That didn't resonate very well with them. But whatever. I got a picture with Omar. Rest in peace, Michael K. Williams, one of the greats. And fuck that meeting anyways.
Are those the same people like from Interscope that were going to put you on tour with Lil Wayne?
Probably.
Yeah.
There's so much I don't remember, especially when it started getting chaotic like that, where things are happening and we're getting success. I don't remember. And that was a point in my career where I was very hands-off with the machinations of my career.
Yeah, we're going to get to it to the point where you like start getting more hands-on, but
right.
We're just going to keep going down the Webby timeline too.
Yeah, so where we hit
well, here's what I want.
There goes the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, we did. There goes the neighborhood. But I want to talk to you too about a studio session that you had with Dame Dash. This was something Furiat told me about.
Oh, this was like,
this is a little bit further down the line.
This is way back. Okay, now we're going back in time. This is 2010 when I had the bad manager. Oh, man. Well, I rapped for Dame Dash the one time, and we would go down there because this guy knew Dame Dash, kind of. You know what I mean? They had a little bit of a standoffish relationship, but it was enough to get me in the room. And Dame Dash had this place called DD 172, which was like an art gallery, and it had a studio downstairs with ski beats. And we would go there, and a lot of times I would just kind of hang out and just wait, like, maybe it'll be my turn to make a song next, you know? But thus far, it hadn't been. Well, finally, Ski was like, "Yo, Webb, you've been kind of here a bunch of times. Like, you want to get in? You want to make a joint?" And I was like, "Man, you already know, of course. Like, that's so exciting." So we start making a song. So this manager had bullshitted a charity and said that Dame Dash was going to come.
Oh, no.
And Dame Dash didn't obviously know about that at all. This guy was just making shit up. And since I was associated with this guy, Dame Dash found out while I was working with Ski Beats in the studio, and other people are in the studio, and Dame Dash came downstairs and he was like, "Hey, I got no problem with you, but your man, you know, can't make any music. You know, you got to shut this down."
Damn.
And I was like, "Oh my God," like in front of everybody. I was just like, "Okay, no, it's all good, man. My soul's just totally crushed, but not a big deal. I'll be fine."
Single tear going down the face.
Yeah, it was, I've had so many embarrassing moments, but honestly, at this point, that one wasn't my fault, obviously. Like, this fucking guy making shit.
Yeah, I want to talk to you. I'm going to pull it to like the Bars on Me era. You were staying with T.I.'s manager, Jason Jeter.
Yeah.
What do you remember from that time, dude?
That was a strange time. We were down in Atlanta. Like, the main goal was to get DJ Drama to host the mixtape, which ultimately we did get. Yeah. So mission accomplished there. It took a very long time to nail that down. But we went there to make a bunch of music. Super random era in my career. At that point is when I feel like me and Dana, who was managing me, we're starting to see two different visions. And I think we started with the same vision. And I think it's me who kind of changed what I decided I was starting to want out of this. And seeing this other path where it's like, you don't have to be a superstar. You know what I mean? You don't have to keep reaching for the shiny object. You could just like build a stable business and really cater to the fans and do it independently. And there started to be a bit of a rift there, but Atlanta was bizarre. I mean, Atlanta just is inherently an interesting place. The fact that strip clubs are just bars.
I was going to bring up the time you got carried out of a strip club, dude.
Yeah.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah, why not? So we were at a Tootsie's, which I've heard is since shut down, which is a shame because Tootsie's was a good time. Tootsie's was like a strip club and a house party combined. And we had just flown in that day. And you know when you fly, you're a little like, your
got the jet lag,
equilibrium.
yeah.
It wasn't jet lag, same time.
So,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But your equilibrium's a little off. And what do I do when I go to strip club? Obviously, like, have a full-blown conversation with strippers and talk to them about life and politics and, you know, nature and weird. That's just what I do. I'm not in there like, oh, yeah, you know. So I ended up just talking with this chick and smoking a blunt. And next thing I know, I'm on the shoulder of a very large security man who has apparently picked me up not once but twice. The first time he picked me up, he dropped me on my face, and I got strip club rug burn on my cheek. And the second time he grabbed me and picked me up, I'm unconscious. I fainted, like straight up fainted. Second time he picked me up, I'm over his shoulder, but my pants got pulled down, and my bare ass is out for everyone to see. And as he's carrying me out, all the strippers are slapping me on my ass, and I'm coming to. I'm like, hey, okay, yeah. And I got carried out like that, and I never saw my iPod again.
Damn, dude, that's the craziest plot twist on the end there, dude. Yeah. Well, let's pull it to Homegrown, dude. Let's talk about, because that was your first label that you started.
Yeah. Still have the
Homegrown tat, dude.
logo there, yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that era, dude.
Yeah, so the dream was then to, like, start a label. You know, we had seen, it's really like the same timeline of it, but Hobson making Funk Volume and, you know, seeing this alternative path where you could both kind of get a label deal but have your own label. And, you know, I wasn't super hands-on with the Homegrown era, but it brought, like, Jitta into the picture. It brought Juice as an engineer into the picture, which was really cool, you know, still friends to this day. But it was a very disorganized time period, but that kind of piggybacks into the E1 deal, which is like the one record contract I ever signed. And they were like an independent label, but still a label, you know, and they gave me a good amount of money to make the Homegrown EP and Chemically Imbalanced, ultimately the album. And it was a good deal, honestly. It was money and one album, you know, you can't really complain about that. I was in FYE, I was doing in-store signings. I'm glad I got like the very tail end of that wave and I got to experience that. Having my CD in stores. Like,
yeah, I saw you were in Target, dude.
Yeah, it's not a thing anymore. So that was cool. But, you know, that era brought upon some cool things. It also accentuated some of the issues that had maybe been sitting around. Some of the disorganization that we had been coasting on for this long.
Yeah.
Now you inject a bunch of money into the situation and things get problematic, you know?
You said it best, dude. More money, more problems.
Yeah, it gets complicated because I take responsibility for having no responsibility in what the fuck was going on. So really, that was a choice that I made. So I really can't blame anyone else for whatever happened. And it's also murky. We were ultimately all working towards a common goal, but these are the years where it all starts to really kind of fall apart and no one knows what's going on. Communication's getting wonky. But making Chemically Imbalanced was a super cool experience. Got to work with Scott Storch.
I want to talk to you about that, dude. What was it like being in the studio with Scott, dude?
It was so cool, man. We got to, it was right at a strange time in his life where he's kind of making a comeback. Fury kind of touched on that in his episode.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were catching a vibe, hanging out with each other. And then he played the little piano riff because he's a master pianist. And he played the riff to Chemically Imbalanced. And I remember going like, ooh, I like that. Play that again. And then he did it again. I'm like, do it one more time. And he did it again. And then he added like the second part of the melody. And I was like, ooh. And from that point forward, we just kept chasing that one and we made that whole song. And I remember him saying like, this is at that time the best I've felt about something. And he said that I reminded him of Eminem more than anyone he had seen, which...
Huge compliment.
Yeah. For someone who worked with Eminem, especially during that era, you know, that's like the early Eminem years. And 2001 and such. So that was a very cool compliment to get. Scott Storch is one of the greatest producers
of all time.
Yeah,
dude.
for sure. I mean, he's incredible to watch. He really is incredible to watch. His sunglasses on with a lip bogey, just going crazy, man. He's a cool dude. I'd love to get back in with him. I really would love to get back in with him now with the skill set that I have now. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
But it was overall, I think Chemically Imbalanced was a good project. What I'm most proud of with that project is the skits. There's like interludes throughout them where it's like we set a scene, we did all this voice and sound work, and then we had Kenny Urban do the beatboxing.
Shout out Kenny.
And he killed it. Kenny Urban is a master beatboxer. But I think that really made it feel like an album, in a way that not even the Wednesday albums feel like. Those are more like playlists. Like this was something that was from start to finish treated like an album. And when the Wednesday series is done, I'd love to make something else that gets treated that way because there is a different process to it when you're not just assessing everything song by song. You're kind of thinking of this larger organism. And yeah, Chemically Imbalanced, there's definitely some shining moments on that project, I would say.
Yeah. I want to pull it back to some of the other features, though. I want to pull it a little bit back to Bars on Me because you have a song with Method Man.
Oh, yeah, Bars on Me. We forgot that one. That was...
Well, we could like slightly...
Yeah, that was
era.
The drama one. Yeah, that was the Atlanta era. Yeah.
But yeah, Method Man, dude.
Yeah, so... Funny thing, too, the bad manager from back in the day, he comes back into the picture, hat in hand, with that Method Man verse. And it's like, maybe we let him hang out a little bit, man. That's so cool that he got that.
That's a good ticket for re-entry.
Yeah, he popped up a couple times with those kind of tickets. And then, but a Method Man verse, that's a good ticket, man. Method Man is one of the illest.
Yeah.
So there's some really cool features on there. Also Prodigy.
Oh yeah, Prodigy.
Rest in peace. That's crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
And then Joe Budden too, right?
Yeah. No, that's on the Checkup.
Okay, the Checkup. Yeah. But you had some,
which I wasn't even gonna mention the Checkup.
Yeah.
That came out in between. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of but that's the thing. You have so many albums.
Yeah,
dude.
I don't even remember all the shit.
But yeah, how was it like working with Prodigy?
Super cool. We did that song together,
which is like kind of rare. I feel like doing something in the studio.
Yeah, we did it at Ski Beats' spot in New York. That was crazy, man. He was super cool.
Yeah. Earlier you talked about filming all the episodes of 106 in Park.
Yeah.
What was it like when you finally went up there?
That was a full circle for me because I had been taping Freestyle Friday as a kid for all these years, and then I got asked to go be a judge on Freestyle Friday. Now, when I was a kid, I thought the goal was like, one day I'm going to get on Freestyle Friday and like, you know what I mean? Nah, I came back and I was a judge. That was a super cool moment. That was, unfortunately, the battle wasn't very good. So there wasn't much to work with there. I was really hoping for, it was actually a pretty weak battle, but one of those little full circle moments,
And you've met so many people in the industry, too. Like, I saw a photo of you with DJ Who Kid, who you were with a lot, but I also saw you with Ferg.
Yeah. I have met so many people. There's a lot of people I've also met, like, early in their career and have, like, helped out in little ways, who are now big time.
Yeah.
That's kind of my whole thing is I like to help someone who I see has got potential. You know me, I'm all about just giving gems and not really looking for an angle out of it, just I like seeing people win.
I've seen you do it, especially like, dude, with Connecticut, dog. Like, I know every Connecticut artist is looking for, like, at you because you're the guy who, like, kicked down the door, dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I did that. I mean, there's been others, don't get me wrong. Apathy is one of the best rappers on the, like, he is so good at rapping, it's insane. But I would say that especially, I talk about Connecticut a lot. I got it tattooed on me. I'm looked at as kind of the guy out here, which at first I feel like it was more a look of resentment, and now I feel is a bit more of a look of respect. Either way, my energy's been kind of the same the whole time. I'm just like, dude, I'm just trying to live my life. You know what I mean? Some people will get mad at me because I didn't represent their interpretation of Connecticut, and To which, like, what the fuck do you want me to do about that? Like, I'm going to be myself and talk about my life from my eyes, because how else could I do that? I think there's a misconception in Connecticut sometimes where it's like, everybody's just got to go out and work, just because we're all from Connecticut. Like, yes, I'll be more inclined to help from someone from Connecticut than someone from a random place. But also, I got to see that you're like trying and working
Doing
hard and that you
something,
have
yeah.
something. Not just being from Connecticut is enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're such a small market like that where sometimes people think that that's how it should be. And quite frankly, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you got to put your own time in too, and like, make it worth even looking at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and at this point, like, I'm like 35 years old. Like, I got a whole life, like girlfriend, a dog, a fish tank, a house, a career. I got a tour. I got to make my own music. So like, I don't even really, I don't even do features. I'm like losing my mind at all times, like handling way too much at once. You know me. I'm like literally the Tasmanian devil, like just always in the middle of like so many things. And, so for someone to think like, oh, yeah, no doubt, I'll just drop everything to do a feature and I don't even know you, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Come on.
It's crazy, dude. And I want to talk to you, too, because I want to bring it back with some of the people you met, because I saw a photo of you and Riff Raff, and I know that you guys probably had a crazy time together.
Yeah. We hung out at, like, his studio, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dude, I'm going to tell you what. There is an entire era of my career where it's better to ask Fury for a lot of this information, because, like, I must have been doing a lot of drugs, man.
Yeah.
Or drinking. I don't remember so much. I was just head in the clouds, just work on the music. I don't know what the fuck was going on.
Do you remember interviewing Fall Out Boy?
Yeah, that. What was that for? It was like one of those music channels.
Yeah, exactly.
I forget which one.
Was it like Music Choice or something?
Yeah, I think so. And there was a festival that I was on, but they had me interview Hobson, Fall Out Boy, Andrew WK. I was basically doing what you're doing
right now. Yeah.
I remember taking that seriously too.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. I was like, I had a show that day too, but I was like writing my questions and, what a random ass day.
Yeah, dude. And another random thing I saw is that you ran into Andre 3000.
Yeah, at a gas station.
That's so random, dude.
Yeah, in the Atlanta days.
What was going on? You just were pumping gas, you looked over, you saw 3 stacks, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Exactly that?
I don't think I was pumping gas. I think I was going in to like get a pack of bogeys or something, and I was just like, he was talking to like a homeless guy. And I was like, no way. And then he walked away on foot.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. He's out here in the universe. Like, he's got something figured out.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've figured out a lot more as I've gotten older too. It's like you shed a lot of bullshit as you get older. Like, I don't give a shit that I'm all scruffy, that my hairline's bad. You just like, you start to just like embrace who the fuck you are. And Andre 3000, I feel like, is the epitome of that. He kind of has rejected so much of the societal bullshit. And that's something that I've gotten much better at,
Yeah, I want to talk to you too about Hot Jam, dude.
Yeah, Hot Jam.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who else was on that show. I know Ace Hood was on that show.
No, you know who was on that show? Kendrick and Cole were on that show.
Insane, dog. Yeah, so what was that experience like?
I mean, I was on early, obviously, but it was really cool. And then I got to be done and watch the rest of the show. I will say, I did go up and ask J. Cole for a picture, and he did say nah. And I don't hold it against him, because I get it, but that was another one of those like, all right, no doubt. Yeah, so, it's not like I didn't even really want a picture. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. But like, we were in like the artist section. You know what I mean? It's not like
you were a random.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
I respect his decision to refuse that picture, but that definitely made me feel like, especially in Connecticut, like,
Yeah, no, that's
I was
fair,
like, oh man.
dude. I mean,
Story of my life, honestly. Like, I just get snubbed left and right. I'm not really one to like be given flowers or really recognized on a larger scale. And I've just come to embrace and accept that. Like, I don't expect anyone to know who I am. I don't expect anyone to respect what I've built. I just, I have my fans. I do what I do. And if you happen to know who I am and you
got
like
your
me,
own garden, dude.
Yeah. That's what I ultimately had to do, is create my own garden. Because sure as hell, like, the overall scope of hip hop and music as a whole was not embracing me. And I think I needed that, because that actually led me to become who I really am and become a better artist. So
Yeah, dude. And you know a photo I saw that they didn't snuff you on a photo? Travis Barker, dude. Where did you meet Travis?
I met Travis. Well, that was, I think the picture that you're thinking of might have been from South by Southwest, but also I got to go to the Lil Wayne Blink-182 show with Alien,
amazing.
who has drummed for me many times. Alien's a great guy. And he knows Travis, so we got to like go backstage and hang out with him more recently. That was like in Virginia Beach a couple of years, 4 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, dude, I have pictures with some crazy people. I ultimately, like, the main takeaway from these random ramblings of a insane mid-30s wild animal you got on here is that it's been a long run, and I couldn't even remember half of the shit that happened, but like a lot of it was pretty impressive and cool, and it's a life that I wouldn't trade for anything, you know? But it's been super chaotic. I don't remember like a lot of these things you're even saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, as I was scrolling through, I learned a lot about you, and I've known you for like 10 years at this point. And some of the stuff I'm mentioning is even before I knew you, you know? One thing I do want to bring up, this is one of the last people I'll bring up, and then I want to move to touring. Diplo. You had like Diplo.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so random to me.
Yeah. Me and Jitta went to, Diplo had a show in Connecticut, and then he brought us on stage and had us like pick girls from the crowd to like dance on stage, which that felt cool. It's like, oh, I've been assigned to like pick hot girls. Like, I'm like mid-20s. Like, yeah, dude, I look like a fucking man right now. This is sick. Yeah, I totally forgot about that night as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pull it to touring right now, dude, because I know one of the first like big tours you did as an opener, Tech N9ne, dude, the special effects tour.
That's the only tour I've done as an opener.
Well, there you go.
You know, every other tour I have been the headliner, and I tell people all the time, it's way more fun to be the opener. It's great to be the headliner. I love it. I love that I've been able to tour like this for as long as I have. But man, was it refreshing to go on someone else's tour and be able to actually like enjoy myself a little bit. And, you know, when I get off stage, it's not the end of everyone's night, you know, and I would get off stage before Tech. I would go into the crowd, hang out, watch Tech perform, have a drink, get into some trouble. And it was amazing. And Tech is such a good performer, man. I learned a lot stage-wise from him, for sure.
What's one of your favorite memories from being on the Tech tour? Or one that just comes to mind?
Man, it's like, it's such a blur of flashing images that's going through my head. Yeah, oh my God. A lot of drugs, that was when I was my wildest. Like, I was out of control on that tour. I was definitely out of control. But I had a good time. I feel like I came back from that tour and I wasn't chemically exactly the same as when I left in my brain type vibe. You know, this guy tours. I mean, it was 50 shows in 53 days.
That's insane.
So it's like, there is no bounce back time. You're just right back into it. I had laryngitis in the middle of it. You just push through. There was one point where I had a show in Connecticut and I had to fly from Seattle to Connecticut, fly right back for another show. It was out of control. Andre Drummond picked me up from the airport for that randomly too. Now they're just like random fact. Shout out to Andre Drummond though. Great guy. Yeah. You know, it's like, I almost thought like I was going to come into this and like be more articulate than I ended up being, because it's hard to articulate all of this shit. Like
There's so much, dude.
I'm like a bumper car just bouncing around in my head. I thought I was gonna be able to be like, yeah, and then but I mean, you throw some of these things out there, it really is an insane ride. Like it's been an insane ride, and some of my fans have been there through the majority of it. You know, maybe not for Fossils of the Future and things of that nature, but rap wise, man, yeah, it's been a fucking.
What's one thing that you learned from Tech?
His show game is so tight, and just the way he approaches tour in general, it's like certain rules that I've taken in, you know what I mean? Like at that point, I don't know if he was like sober 100%, but he was very dialed in, you know what I mean? And granted, you know my shows, it's not like I'm sober, but I'm sober more or less when I go on stage. I drink throughout the show, but it's just like he has a lot of rules very clearly that he follows, because if you don't follow those rules, there's no way you can do 50 shows in 53 days. You know what I mean? You'll fall apart. We're all human beings ultimately. So you have to have important rules. And I did have rules, but I made them more strict. And also it just showed me like what can be done in terms of visuals, you know, just everything. And also what could be done independently. I mean, he's packing out everywhere. You know, he's packing out places I had never been. And I still have people who come out to shows being like, oh man, I first saw you with Tech. And I'm like, you know, it's so cool. So, you know, Tech, he was really nice to me. That's a good slot to be right before the headliner. That's a super cool. There were certain nights where, you know, the people really wanted Tech, you know, and I'm like, all right, just give me a sec. But there were certain nights where, you know, there were a ton of Webby support in the crowd. So it was a really good experience. I mean, that's really what you want out of a opening for an artist on tour. You want to be getting out to new people. So
Yeah.
definitely got a lot of that, and just a lot of experience under my belt. And it just, I mean, if you can make it through 50 shows in 53 days, like
That's the most insane
You know?
touring. I've never even done that, dude. That's so intense.
yeah. So it just makes you see any other tour like I could do that. You know?
Yeah. You talked about like, you know, your drug use on the tour. Has that ever scared you?
Well, now is a different day and age. Fentanyl is terrifying, and it's never been more important to do safe drugs if you're going to do drugs. So that's, I'm a pretty balanced person. I don't have that addictive tendency where one substance will take over and unravel my entire life. But nowadays you're in a situation where, you know, one wrong bump could kill you. So I think if you're going to do drugs, get them from a trusted source and have them with you. So that way you don't end up dying. But has it ever scared me, my drug usage? No. And I think really ultimately what ended up taxing me the most was just like the party lifestyle and everything that comes with it. Drinking, coke. You know, I had to retire from Molly and ecstasy a long time ago because you can only put so many holes in your brain until it just entirely stops working altogether. But it's just that it's a really toxic lifestyle. It's part of touring, so I accept that, but I'm also there to do a job. So when the job's done, go back to the hotel. There's no need to go to an after party. Changing things like that in my life has been very important for my overall success, especially as I'm getting older. And when I'm home, I don't party at all. I don't drink. You know what I mean?
It's a tour exclusive.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally, you know.
I know what you're saying.
But I'm really, you know, I'm Adderall, Lil Xanax to go to sleep, you know.
Yeah, dude.
I can't smoke weed right now because I got this fucking dental surgery. I'm going crazy.
Yeah, dude. Well, I want to talk to you about, just speaking of like drinking, let's talk Jamo Neat, dude.
Yeah. So then we move into that. So now we're out of the E1 deal. Back onto our timeline of projects here. So Jamo Neat is an interesting one because the story of it makes it a much cooler project. If you don't know the story of it, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, okay. But what ended up happening was me and Juice were in Miami. Juice was my engineer at the time. And we had Sap fly out, who produced So Easy. He had produced a good handful of songs for me.
Incredible producer, too.
Yeah, very, very dope producer, very dope dude. And it was really like the three of us just locked in and we were just going to make a couple songs. It ended up that we made that entire project, beats, lyrics, everything, all in 8 days.
That's insane,
Every
dude.
single night between us, we finished a bottle of Jameson. That's why we called it Jamo Neat. We did 8 days straight. It was like a manic, creative. I mean, we were getting out at sunrise from the it was nuts. But in Miami, staying up all night doesn't feel as bad as it does up here. You know, you stay up all night up here, especially during winter, you're just like, oh, God, I'm disgusting. Yeah. When you're down in Miami, you're like, oh, it's beautiful out, you know?
Yeah, speaking of staying up all night, you met Gronk in Vegas?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do remember that. Yeah. That was a night where I did stay up.
Okay.
That was a night where I did stay up. A little too much party favor that night, if I recall. But, you know, and that same bad manager, that was the last time he was involved, was organizing that. It was the World Series of Beer Pong.
Oh, amazing, dude.
Yeah, which was cool. I actually did pretty good, too. I was there to perform, but I entered it as well. And ultimately, the guys who won the whole thing, we had a face at one point in the tournament, and we put them into overtime. So,
that's good,
pretty proud
dude.
of that. But yeah. That was Vegas. I can't. Vegas will chew you up and spit you out. You spend more than a couple of days there. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna keep it pushing down the timeline because I want to talk about the time that you went up on Sway.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just still thinking about that.
Yeah,
cocaine's a hell of a drug, but. It makes me think of a funny time, though, and just kind of to speak of our dynamic, just the one time we were in that green room and I took a bag of Coke and just put it on your shoulder.
Dude, you did. It was more
just to make you uncomfortable. It was so funny to me.
Dude, in Maine, though, you put like everything on my shoulder. It was like a little trinket box of whatever that was.
Yeah, I was given a lot of stuff that night. But yeah, I like to fuck with this guy when he gets uncomfortable with like drugs and you know what I mean?
Well, it's funny, like for people that like don't know me, like I don't really smoke or drink, but you did catch me smoke on tour once, dude.
Yeah, that's a great clip. We finally got you to smoke weed.
Yeah, it's so rare, dude.
This kid was high as shit.
Dude, I remember just like leaving and then going to take a bath, dog.
Yeah. You take a lot of baths. I've heard a lot of your stories end with like, and then I took a bath. That's so crazy to me. Like as a grown man, like, you know how infrequently baths are a part of my life?
It's crazy though too, because you actually have a fire bath.
I do have a fire bath. Where it's like literally a koi fish that spits the water out.
It doesn't get much cooler than that, dog.
I think I've used it 3 times since I moved in.
After this, you got to go take a bath, dude.
I don't know if the jets work anymore, which is a real shame.
It is a shame, dude. Let's pull it to Sway.
Sway, dude. So Sway's the man. He has supported me from very early on in my career. He was bringing me on the show to rap since like very early days. And he supported me. He saw something in me and he kept bringing me back. And that I really appreciate because it was genuine because Sway is a real supporter of hip hop culture, you know? So the fact that he saw something in me before it was polished, and kept giving me a shot to go up there and rap. Because I rapped a lot of times before the one that everyone knows. And then I went up there the one time. Well, there was a time before that. It was when the Mayan calendar was supposed to run out and we all thought we were going to die for a second.
2012?
Yeah, he did a doomsday cypher. And he brought a bunch of his favorite rappers, you know, just like spitters up there. And I was included in that, which was an honor. And I remember getting up there and I was a little bit late and someone was rapping. I think it was P, who's an incredible rapper. And I went and I sat down next to Troy Ave. And I was like, so is everyone like going to be freestyling or what? He's like, freestyling? Like, you're crazy. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Well,
yeah.
All right. And I was the only one who like went off the top. And I had to rap multiple times that day. But I really went in there with no plan. I was just like, yeah.
Considering it was the doomsday too, crazy to be late to that.
Yeah. And well, the thing is, it's Sway in the morning, and that's not an understatement, man. It's like really early. And to drive down from Connecticut, you got to leave like it's still dark out type shit.
Yeah, that's nuts, dude.
But then I went on Sway, right after the first Wednesday album came out. I want to say that was 2017. It was like 2017, very beginning of 2018. I can't remember which one it was. But I went on, aired my grievances about mumble rap and politicians amongst, just other bars. And that really resonated and went super viral. That's probably the most viral I've ever gone on Facebook. That was back when you could go viral on Facebook and swear. Now like Meta has neutered the English language and everything has to be edited and it's fucking bullshit if you ask me. But that went super viral, man. I know because I was getting texts from people I hadn't talked to in like forever. 8, 9, 10 years. And I'm like, damn, I've also done a lot of other shit, but cool though. I'm glad this one hit.
We're kind of making our way up the timeline. Let's go 2016 now because that's Webby's Lab 2.
So that's Webby's Lab 2. So, okay, after Jamo Neat, I briefly moved to Cali. And when I say briefly, I mean briefly. I was living there for maybe 3 months. But that 3 months kind of brought all the inadequacies of the career structure and business structure that we had built to the surface. Because now we're paying for this house. I basically have to tour to sustain it. And then I'm not even there. You know what I mean? Because I'm on tour. And it's like, what are we doing here? And I think that's where there was a real rift between me and my manager at the time. And I think it ultimately just came down to, and I would love one day to speak with Dana because, we were both just two kids who got in this shit together. And we went through a lot of battles together, man. We fought hard to get from point A to point B so many times. And we were just kids with no experience, no knowledge of the world we were getting into. But then it all just kind of exploded and we went our different ways. And ultimately from that point, I sat in the driver's seat of my career. And I think that's for the best. And I also know he's doing very well right now. So I think that was all meant to happen. And it was supposed to be a learning experience for everyone. So I hope there's no ill will there because it wasn't particularly comfortable when it happened. It was like, it wasn't a good vibe, It was very catastrophic.
Growing pains.
It was just everything exploded, And there was some collateral damage and a lot of people felt certain ways. And ultimately, I knew one thing, and that is that I am Chris Webby. I have one shot at this. I don't get to step away and do something else. I either salvage my career and my name or that's it for me, more or less. Yeah. So I took all the debt. I took everything into my possession and sat in the driver's seat. And from that point forward, because we were in a lot of debt, my taxes hadn't been done for like 4 or 5 years. Various people were owed money for various things. It was just messy and chaotic. And eventually, something like that's going to explode. And it did. So I moved back home with my parents, got in the driver's seat. And from that point forward, I have been a micromanaging psychotic animal that works obsessively. I changed on like a molecular level from that point forward.
Yeah, no, I know that was a big turning point in your career too, like around the Webster's Lab too. I know that because that's the era that I entered.
Yeah.
And one thing we got to talk about real quick because I know he's watching this and he'll be punching the air if we. How did you link with Chris Fury? Chris Fury got in. There's a lot of people to shout out too.
Yeah.
Santo, Smooth, like all the whole tour squad, and Fury. Man, Fury's been around through a lot of eras, so he got brought in through Dana.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
And he was like the adult. Me and Dana were out here doing shit, and he was the adult / the fall guy when something went wrong. And he has extensive experience in this. And ultimately, I love Fury. And still work with Fury to this day. I mean, I talk to him all the time. He's heavily ingrained in my career. He's been tour managing for many years now. But during this time period,
I didn't know what to trust. So there was like a pause on me and Fury's relationship while I just kind of reorganized the pieces. And I think I really had to do that just as a man and as an individual. I just had to like fully take on, just strip everything away and start back over at my parents' house, just like I started with the ear flaps on the fucking hat when the white noise came out, you know?
So what are you doing to bounce back at this point?
Well, I treated 2016 as a year of karmic correction. I wanted to pay back anyone who was owed money, the government included, American Express included. All of this, I realized that 2016 was just going to kind of be an L to recalibrate. Not an L, because it needed to be done, but like I needed to spend a year to just course correct before I could even move forward. I had to go take a step sideways so I could move forward the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what 2016 was. Started reorganizing the crew. This is when I connect heavily with JP, who is my producer to this day, almost exclusively. JP is the most talented producer I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I want to talk about JP and Knox too.
And Knox comes in the picture right at the end of about that 2016, 2017. This is where like the real team that I still am with today starts to form. And some members of that team were around like a Fury, you know, and then came in, assimilated in a slightly different role. And then some new players, and JP was a game changer, I'll tell you that. Same with Knox, you know. And really just spent 2016 like going back to the roots. So I dropped a mixtape to Webster's Lab, you know, which had been viewed as kind of the classic Chris Webby mixtape. And I dropped it on the 5-year anniversary of the first Webster's Laboratory to the day, June 5th, which I thought was pretty cool, man.
That is cool, dude.
That's some attention to detail shit. So, yeah, that year was like one long, exhausting anxiety attack.
So that's the year I connected with you, and we shot a bunch of music videos. We shot High by the Beach that year.
Great video.
Knocked Down.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw myself under the bus a little bit. That was the year. I don't even know if we should say his name, but I'll say his name.
Another shitty manager. How about that?
We'll say that. We had another person that I introduced you to.
Yeah, because I was just in a point where it's like, I didn't necessarily want a manager, but like I had stripped everything away and I was like, man, I need something. And then you were like, oh, I got this guy. He's great. Fucking idiot.
Dude,
he was
tough.
not great.
No,
he was like
great.
The worst of all, because not only was he just like not a great guy, at least at that point in his life, he was completely ineffective.
Dude. I learned that pretty quickly after.
Thanks for the recommend.
Well, listen. I learned that quickly after, but it was kind of too late because everyone around me was like, well, he's going to do this stuff for me. Like, if I was giving everyone a heads up, like, they're like, well, he said he's going to do this for me, so I should just, like, see this through. And I was just like, dude. But,
yeah, it was like your first manager experience. You're like, dude, I got this guy. He's great. He's a manager. Like, you know,
I was 21, dude. I was super
couldn't be
green.
better than that. Like, he's a manager and he's managing me, so you should totally use him.
I'm just very thankful that didn't, you know, put a wedge in our relationship.
Oh, no. It's hard to put a wedge in a relationship with me, especially long term. I'm pretty, like, understanding and forgiving. And in this case, like, you literally just didn't, I'll still break your balls about it.
Yeah.
You know, but you had no idea what the fuck you were talking about. And also, joke's on me for listening to you, like, at the time. Like, what the fuck did you know about what a good manager is?
I was so young, too. Yeah. I don't know. But I don't know. It's good.
But that shows how vulnerable I was at that point in life. Like, I'm literally, like, alone where I'm like, yeah, like, I'll take some help, like, from someone. And, I mean, he didn't last very long in the organization. There was another management-esque figure who came into the picture as well that didn't last long. I mean, ultimately, I just realized, like, dude, I am my own manager, and I will have a team. I will have capos, and people will have, like, even bringing Fury back into the position, just restructuring how it is, giving him specific stuff that he excels in instead of just like, do all the stuff that I don't feel like doing or don't know how to do. Putting people in a position where they can be the best versions of themselves. And I heard Fury talk about that in his interview. And I do think that is something that I've gotten pretty good at, because you can't expect someone to be unbelievable at something that isn't their specialty. So just accept people for who they are and put them in positions where they can be the best version of themselves. If they're in that position and they fall short, you know, like, most things can be handled with a conversation, though, you know? Like, most people are pretty cool. And sometimes, you know, ultimately, you got to do what you got to do when you're running a business.
And I think if people are faking the funk, it'll all come to the surface eventually. You know what I mean?
Authenticity is the most important part. I'd rather have someone come up and be like, yo, listen, man, I fucked up. And be like, all right, thank you for being honest. You know, let's take it from there. Then someone try to like cover up their mistake, and now down the line, that shit's going to be a fucking issue for me, whether it's minor or major. I don't like getting lied to.
Yeah. And then like it also, because everybody who's working with you is an extension of you, right? So it's like, you know, if you have someone a part of your team that's not doing something right, it all ends up just coming right back to you anyways.
Absolutely.
It's not this person that did something wrong. It's Chris Webby's guy did something wrong.
Yep, there was a lot of that throughout the course. And I've had just such a rotating door of these management figures. You know what I mean? I would go as far as saying I really only ever had one manager, and that was Dana. You know, and we really did some great shit together, and we really did build a kingdom at a time. And I like to think of the positive side of that in retrospect. You know what I mean? But everyone else, I mean, there's been other people in these roles for shorter amounts of time, and ultimately all of those experiences just kind of pushed me towards being like, bro, let me just be the one to speak for myself and hire a booking agent and have a business manager, of course, to make sure, you know, I got a lot of different LLCs and we have multiple businesses, there's taxes, there's a lot of shit. So like, I need a business manager, but in terms of just being the overall guy who everything needs to go through to get done, who better than me, you know what I mean, to handle my career?
Business, yeah.
You got to be a certain type of person for that. And I'd go as far as saying I wasn't that kind of person for years. And now
that was your
am
turning
mature
point.
enough. Yes. Now, 2016 was when I kind of evolved into that, because I had to, or else it was game over. And it was uncomfortable. It was exhausting, but we made it to the other end. And then in 2017, we start the Wednesday series, which at first was really a fundraiser, kinda. I'm seeing it like streaming is a thing now. Okay. You know, singles are a thing now. Farley, my buddy, really nailed that into my head. It's like, you gotta drop singles. And he was right about that. And here I am, you know, 2009 to 2017, this entire expanse of my professional career, let alone what came before it. And I have nothing to show for it. I'm back at my parents' house just like I was before. You know, I have fans, but I have nothing at the same time. So I have all these experiences, but they don't mean anything financially. So I decided this Webby Wednesday thing is going to be like a fundraiser to make up for lost time and ultimately put me back in the game. And all these years later, going into last Wednesday, it changed the game. It made its own game. I'm not in that game anymore that I thought I was in. I am in my own world, and that's how it was always supposed to be. I think the biggest mistake me or anyone else in my organization ever made was thinking that I could coexist in this game that already exists. I'm not that type of person. I'm such a specific human being. I don't follow rules. I have a problem with authority. I am my own. I'm just a very over-the-top person. And, I'm a big right and wrong guy. That doesn't fly so well in Hollywood. You know, it's a dirty, disgusting fucking world. Like, I would never fit in with these people.
One thing you've said that has stuck with me is that you're not in the music business. You're in the Chris Webby business.
It's absolutely true.
And that's something like, that's how I treat it too. Like, I'm in the Mike Squires business trying to figure out what works for me.
And you know what's important about thinking that way too? Because when I was younger and kind of going back to that white rapper thing where there's all this static between everybody, I'm watching what he's doing. Oh, I should be doing that. You know, fuck that mindset entirely. Like, it took me a while to get out of that because that just builds resentment for people you don't even really know. You're just watching other people win and you're mad you're not winning. That is such an unhealthy mindset that I absolutely will take accountability for having as a younger man. You know, it's really just like, I could say all this shit to someone 22, 23 years old, and they might even hear me and really try to understand what I'm saying, but you kind of just have to live through it, and you have to grow, and you have to mature. At least I did, you know? And I'm a better person for it, for sure. So, yeah.
What advice would you have to an artist that's trying to get into the game right now?
Well, part of it would be, you know, just buckle up for the ride, you know? It's gonna be bumpy. Like, there's no two ways about it. The game is very different than it was when I came out right now. So a lot of, like, the technical advice that I would have given back when I was coming up and the shit that applied to me doesn't apply anymore. Some of it does. The new business model that I have does, you know, with the streaming and this empire I built from this point forward. But, I mean, it really comes down to be unapologetically yourself, like, for real. Not just, like, be yourself, like, truly be the fuck yourself. Like, you've embraced who you are. Like, you're not worried if someone thinks you're, like, a cornball or whatever. Like, oh, why he's got wearing all these different colors, you know what I mean? You and your neons and shit. And we make fun of you and we break your balls, but you're fine with it because you are
who I
yourself.
am, dude. Like, I don't care.
And I'm a fucking nerd who was hanging up Ninja Turtles in his house. You know, I'm a very over-the-top character. And I'm just like, okay, that's just who I am. That's who I am. Like, I'm an interesting person, but I'm not, like, textbook cool. And I spent years, like, trying to portray that I was something that I wasn't. And I through that, you know, through all of these years of music, there's these moments of brilliance, but through the early years, the thing that bothers me the most listening back to it is I'm just, like, trying to portray that I'm something that I'm not. And I'm not saying I'm not cool. It depends on what you define as cool. Like, I think I'm cool, but, you know, it's not that standard definition. And I was trying to just impress people, where at this point in my life, I'm not trying to fucking impress anyone. I'm just trying to make music I like. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. You got a problem with me, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and I'm convinced that you can't even do, like, a podcast like this and it be worth watching and be something if you're not yourself, because people can see right through it.
Yeah.
You know?
We've been bouncing all over the place, too. Like, honestly.
I'm going to bounce it even crazier, dude. I saw you at Pixar Studios.
Yeah, dude.
How did that happen?
This guy's wife worked there, and she invited us, and so the whole tour crew got to go to Pixar that day. That was so cool. You know, Pixar has some great fucking movies.
Of course, dude. Yeah.
Actually, I just was on a bit of a Pixar kick lately, and me and my girlfriend watched Inside Out.
You know, there's another one coming.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that yet, though. That movie's so fucking good, bro.
So good, dog.
I'm not gonna lie.
You shed a tear when he fell.
Dude, I didn't shed a tear. I made my girlfriend look away because I don't really be crying. Like, I'm not.
I don't think I've ever seen you cry.
No, you haven't seen me cry.
Yeah.
And because I don't. It's not like I'm hiding it from you. I don't really cry. It's certain shit, and it's usually in movies. Like, and I'm not saying crying is bad. I'm not saying crying is emasculating.
You just don't do it that
I just don't really cry. I just am like, all right, so that happened. It made me sad. How do we fix it? You know, I'm like a problem solver. My brain is always like, okay. Inside Out, that scene with Bing Bong, I like, tears were coming down the cheeks.
It was a tough one, dude. I know exactly the scene. I see it in my head, dude.
Man, that was, yeah.
We're going to keep it pushing, dude. Anoyd enters your life around this era.
So Anoyd enters right, like, I had been connected with Anoyd. I jumped on the Liquor Stains remix that he had that was on 93.7. I was familiar with him and I was impressed by him. But then I was out in Cali and I was touring, you know, I wasn't really around. Then when I got back to Connecticut, got back to my parents' house, that's when we really got to lock in and we started, like, working in person. I think the first song we did together in person was Slow Down. And we did that at my parents' house. And I still remember that day. There's a picture of us in front of the Camaro from doing that song. And we still perform that song to this day when he comes out on stage. And from that moment, that wasn't even the first song I did with Anoyd, but that's the first one we did in person. From that point forward, the catalog that me and Anoyd have is so crazy. Like, when he's on the road with me, there's just this gigantic list of songs that we could perform, and it's getting more and more difficult to choose which ones, you know. There's the classics, like 2001 you got to do. But, you know, we got a lot of songs together. Anoyd is super, super good, and he's a really good guy. He's so charismatic and fun to be around. Like, bringing him on the road has been awesome. You've been there.
He's the man, dude.
He's the fucking man. Like, truly.
Yeah, and you just talked about like being in Cali. I know that you went to an improv comedy club and you caught a legendary moment.
It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. I was at the Laugh Factory, and it was supposed to just be a normal scheduled night, and then you kind of hear this hush come over the room. Everyone's like, Dave Chappelle's coming, Dave Chappelle. And I'm like, oh, what? So, like, the first comedian went up, and normally how they do it is, like, a bunch of different comedians come up throughout the night, and then they clear the room and bring a new audience in, and they do it again. Well, for the time that we were in there, one comedian went up, and then Dave Chappelle went up, and he was like, I'm not going to lie to you, rest of you, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but no one else is getting on this stage. I'm going to stay up here and shoot the shit. Anyone got a problem with that? And he just sat there, smoked bogeys, and made everyone laugh so hard. And then he called John Mayer. Insane. Just like impromptu. You know what I mean? Sometimes you could tell, like, oh, they planned that and just made it seem like literally they were going to hang out later that night. And he was like, yo, I'm over here. Like, why don't we just leave from here? Why don't you come meet me over here? Next thing you know, John Mayer's on stage. They're shooting the shit, talking with each other. He starts playing a guitar song that they played at Charlie Murphy's funeral. It was like, and the Laugh Factory, it's a small crowd. So it's like, it was such a special moment to be there for such greatness. Dave Chappelle is so good. And that was awesome, man. That was so, I'm a big fan of comedy. I feel like I'm just complimenting. That was so good. That was so, yeah. But like literally, it was so incredible and so special and unique because you couldn't really pay for an experience like that.
Nah,
you had to be there. It's a time and place thing, you know?
Yeah. It was weird seeing like, because John Mayer's another Connecticut native, dude.
He is. I forget that. Yeah, he's from Fairfield. Yeah.
So I want to bring it back to Wednesday. And I mean, it's probably way past this now because I've seen the plaque in your studio, but I mean, the album ended up hitting over 100 million streams.
Yeah, I think I got one for 200 million, and that was a while ago. But here's the thing about plaques. I actually just got my first real plaque, and that was from the song Friend Like Me in Canada.
Amazing, dude.
Artists, and listen, there's nothing wrong with getting yourself a plaque and celebrating your wins.
You need to, I feel.
Yeah, that's cool. But I'm saying there's a certification process that is a real plaque.
Oh, for the real deal ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
dude.
like that is a plaque. You can't just go buy that. I mean, you still have to pay for it, but I earned a plaque in Canada for a Friend Like Me going gold.
It's like a real milestone. That like people,
It's beyond a milestone. It's recognized by the people who make gold, platinum records, etc.
Yeah.
So I only say that to say, you see a lot of people posting plaques, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, anyone can make a plaque. You could go get 100 views on a YouTube video and make yourself a plaque for it, you know, and then flex it on Instagram. Yeah. So it's like,
but I'm bringing it up because 100 million is not anything to sneeze at.
Well, it was 200 million, so not that anyone's sneezing.
200, but you know what I'm saying, dude? Like, but the point I'm trying to bring is like that's off that first project, your comeback project, when you're really starting to like get your groove back.
There was something special about Wednesday, the first one. And admittedly, there wasn't a plan to take it as long as we did. It was kicked around, you know, we could do next Wednesday and Wednesday after next, but that was kind of as far as the plan went. But something really hit with that first one. I mean, I worked really hard. I dropped a song almost every week for the majority of that year. Like, it was all I did. And I mean, I really have kept that mindset since, but in 2017, it was kind of do or die. So there was a different level of intensity. You know, now I do it because I just force myself to stay hungry Then it was like, I'm literally living at my parents' house again at like 30 after not living with my parents. You know what I mean? So it's like, granted, I had lived with them for a while in my career, but then to have finally moved out and then be back
in, yeah.
You know, and then considering things like, shit, man, you know, like if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to consider, you know, getting a job. Not that that's a bad thing, but after you've spent
so much time,
you know, 8 years in the game, like for real in the game, and I didn't have any skills to offer. So like, what am I going to go back to Leslie's Pool Supplies? Like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. So I really had, the fire was turned up, and I think you can feel that in the project, but it's also a fun project. You know, we played with a lot of different sounds, and it really just, it changed the game. There was an element of the fact that I make so many different kinds of songs that when I was putting out full projects, I feel like it almost worked against me because you couldn't really tell what kind of artist I was. You know, you could hear one song and it seemed unhinged. Which, you know, potentially was, but I just make a bunch of different types of songs. I listen to a bunch of different types of songs. In single format, it hit different. And I learned, you know, like I'm never too old to learn. And the algorithm, streaming, etc., owning the masters, having all my shit organized, doing pub right, doing everything right, just doing it properly and starting yet again from humble beginnings, but this time mad fucking organized. And that's the person who I still am today, as you know.
Yeah, dude.
I'm overly like, you know, if you do a video or a recap or something for me, I'll like double check with you to make sure you got paid. I'll be like, yo, just making sure that like 500
you're
hit.
on it, dude.
You know what I mean? Like not that many people like check in to make sure someone got paid, but I don't cross it off my list until I have verbal confirmation from that person type shit.
Yeah, which I think actually makes your whole business operation so much better just because you know what the other side of it looks like.
Yes. And also sometimes shit falls by the wayside, things get forgotten, things get messed up. So it's like I guess the main thing that I changed that year, aside from taking on this role, is I started my to-do list, which to this day is my Bible. And I wake up and I look at it probably about 10 to 20 times a day, go down it. That to-do list is full of everything from organize the turtle room to the songs that I'm in the middle of writing to the calls I have to make to the merch that needs to be ordered to, you know what I mean? And it's all these different things and it's segmented into sections and I scroll through it and that changed my entire life because I'm a kid. I used to write the things that I needed to do on my hand in Sharpie. Like I used to be that kid walking around with like mad Sharpie on his hands and I would cross it off. I was so bad, I would write like laundry on my hand in Sharpie and then have crossed off laundry on my hand. Like insane shit, but I am very scatterbrained, if you couldn't tell throughout the course of this fucking podcast. I have ADHD heavily, and because of that, it's a superpower on the one hand. I'm able to hyper-focus on certain things when I'm working on them, but big picture, it's really hard for me to stay on top of stuff. It's easy for me to forget stuff. And I would say that about anyone. You know, when you have this many irons in the fire, you have to have a list. You asked before, what advice would I give an artist? Make a to-do list. Take it seriously. Make it your Bible, your personal Bible for your career. 100%. That's a specific piece of advice that has really changed my career ultimately and me as a person. The downside of that is that you become very like regimented. Everything's like task oriented. You're like task. But you kind of have to be doing what we do.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about communication too. Yeah. Because in this game, you have to have good communication. How do you feel like your communication has changed from before to now?
I used to put the communication on other people. I mean, granted, there's still some times where I have to do that by circumstance, but Communication is so important. I mean, wars have been fought, won, and lost over a simple miscommunication. People die over miscommunications. Businesses fall apart over miscommunications. Ill will is formed over miscommunications between two people where that could have been completely avoided. Communication is the key to everything. And so often we are just not on the same page. And a lot of times, sometimes it's just because people just don't think to bring shit up. But sometimes it's because this conversation's going to be a little uncomfortable. I'd rather just avoid it. And now there's a rift in the communication, and those things can fester. So I try to do my best to be as upfront as possible, as blunt as possible. Like, there might be something that's uncomfortable that I have to say, but I have to say it. It just needs to be done because I don't want to let this sit around. And I'd rather people did the same with me. I'm never offended if someone, cuts right to the chase and has something serious or is like, hey, man, I want to let you know I'm feeling this type of way about something. I'm like, damn, really?
Because that's the point that you could actually fix it.
Exactly. And I've encouraged people to do that, and people have sometimes brought things up that I wasn't catching on to. I didn't notice. It might even have been something I was doing, and I didn't know that it was making this person feel a type of way or whatever the case may have been. And it's so important to communicate those things. And I'm not going to be offended. I'm like, oh shit, okay, good looks.
Let's fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right.
Also, hold yourself accountable. You know what I mean?
Too,
and I want other people to hold me accountable. And I will hold others accountable. Goddamn right. You know what I mean?
But I think that's what makes those strong relationships where it's like you don't have a bunch of yes men. You have people that'll actually tell you how
100%.
it is.
Yes men are a cancer in this business. We're in the business of making art, ultimately. You have a bunch of yes men around you. What the fuck is that going to do for your art? You see a lot of artists, man. They slowly whittle away their original team, and they end up with people who make them feel comfortable and warm and happy because they have nothing but compliments. And then us as the fans watch as the music just fucking plummets. Falls the fuck apart to the point where you're like, who is he listening to this music with? Who's he showing this to? How is this out right now? This is horrible. So I've seen that happen to a lot of artists, and I've always been sure to be like, that'll never be me. I want someone who's going to be like, nah, that bar is whack, or this song is fire, or I don't like this song. And take that with whatever grain of salt I choose. You know what I mean? I don't expect every single person to like every single song.
Yeah.
But if the guy that usually likes my vibey songs doesn't like this vibey song, I'm going to take that into account. If he doesn't like my super hard bars song, I'll also take that into account. Be like, that one's not really for you. But if my bars guy's like, you could have went harder on this, I'll be like, I should go harder on this. Back to the drawing board. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to have these systems in place. I have such a soundboard for the creative. Songs don't just come out. I don't just do something. I'm like, here you go. It's like, nah, we think about this shit. I make sure everyone's like, yeah, no, this is fire.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to please them, but I want to know that as the creative, you're not always right. I've gotten pretty good at being right and knowing how to make good music because I've made so much fucking music. I'm probably made 500 songs. So at this point, I'm pretty good at it, but ultimately, I could still make a whack song, and I need someone to tell me that if I didn't notice it already,
Yeah, dude. And one thing I want to talk to you about is I want to pull it to the stick-up video.
Yeah.
You had Big Pussy in there.
Yes. I'm a huge Sopranos fan, obviously, if anyone knows anything about me. If you take anything away from this interview, it's that you should go watch The Sopranos. The best show ever. And Big Pussy from The Sopranos used to own a club that my dad was the house band at. And so they knew each other.
I knew they were family friends. I didn't know how, so that's really cool.
Yeah. So he owned a club called the Crazy Horse, which in the show, Adriana gets gifted a club called the Crazy Horse to kind of, to pay homage to Big Pussy's real club. In real life, Vinny. So I had known him from going to his birthday parties when I was younger and everything. And we got him for the video. I saw him recently, actually, too. I see him at I go to all these mob con events and all these Italian things. And I see him at a lot of those. And he's a funny guy, man. But we got him in this video in a speaking role. And we shot this little mini movie for the song The Stick Up, which is one of those things where it's damn, in retrospect, if we did this now, we could do it so much better, you know?
Because you're in a different spot.
Yeah, me and Rook, you know, Rook shot that video.
Yeah.
We both have learned so much since then. That was kind of the first time either of us have done something like that, you know, with so much dialogue and shit like that. But it's still cool. Like, it's a cool little, like, timepiece. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, if we did that now, it would be, like, really good.
Yeah.
But,
talking about, like, you know, your collaborations with Rook and just, like, another series you got going on.
yes.
Raw Thoughts, dude.
Yeah, man.
That was a game changer.
That was, I think, the first video that me and Rook shot together, actually, too. And when you talk about the Wednesday series, I feel like ingrained within that entire fabric is the Raw Thoughts brand. You know what I mean? And I would think that that is kind of a part of this, I would call it second life of my career, but realistically, I'm probably on my fourth or fifth, you know? But this Wednesday era, Raw Thoughts has been an important part of that. And I think it's really interesting to look back at it all as someone who feels very strongly about shit, is learning as they're going, isn't afraid to be wrong, and is literally just unfiltered saying what they feel in a space that tries to make people feel uncomfortable to say these things. You know, I will say the things that are like the most taboo to say, that other rappers are not talking about yet at that point. You know, when I've touched on some of these topics, no one had done it yet. And it's not because I'm just going for shock value. It's because I'm in my house pacing around talking about this shit every day. I'm a conspiracy theorist. So, you know, I think it's really interesting to see how much more enlightened I've become also from the first one until now. And I think it's just, I think those songs serve an important purpose for people to feel like a little more emboldened, a little more brave, to like speak up and question. Yes, absolutely. Very important. And it's also something that I know people always look forward to, because like, we do go all out for the videos, you know, especially progressively. Like the last 3 have been pretty fucking crazy. So it's like, yeah, we have this little like cultural moment within the Webby sphere whenever a Raw Thoughts comes out, you know, and that's also a lot of pressure, because now it's like, man, it's this brand I got to keep like at least matching, if not surpassing. So, I mean, it's getting harder and harder. The last 3 have been pretty dense. But I really like the last one, because the last Raw Thoughts 6 felt a lot like Raw Thoughts 1 in the sense that it was like, really, when I wrote Raw Thoughts, again, it's not like, oh, I'm going to make this a series. It was just like a stream of consciousness. I start out rapping just bars. I go into talking about some mumble rap shit, and then start talking about politicians, kind of like the Sway, you know, that blueprint. And it just was kind of a verse over a beat. And then I called it Raw Thoughts because that's kind of what it was. And it just resonated. And real quick, that Me Too movement happened, and you got like Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein, all these fucking creeps. And I'm like, there's another good group of people to, you know, verbally assault. Let's do that. So that was like kind of the second one. Not that the Me Too movement was all a positive thing. I think a lot of bad people got in trouble finally, and that's good. But then it also started getting used like a weapon, and, you know, that's dangerous too. So then the third Raw Thoughts was just purely a Lil Xan diss, because he was mouthing off on Twitter.
That. Yeah.
He just gave me like, he's like, was like the most punchable, stupid, like he was talking shit about Tupac. He was saying all this wild shit, making horrible music. He was like the definition of mumble rap. Like he was a cameraman. He wasn't even a rapper. And now he's this. So it's like.
And mad disrespectful, too.
Mad disrespectful. It was like everything not to like. He checked all the boxes of all the problems that I had with mumble rap. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't just trying to shit on a whole generation, but I was also taught to respect your elders. So when he said Tupac was boring, you know, I had a problem with that, especially coming from him. Like, who the fuck are you to say that? And like, obviously some people in the comments, everybody's like shitting on him, but I'm like, yo, a rapper needs to just like fucking talk some shit about
especially when
this
he
guy.
has a platform too.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, I said he looked like a lesbian Muppet in a freestyle, and then he must have heard it, and he starts tweeting at me. And he just gave me this unbelievable opportunity where it's like the weakest link, the most hateable of all these mumble rappers, the absolute definition of everything that I've been speaking out against lately in terms of this is just like kind of like when a dog rolls over and opens up their belly. So it's like, bro, you're just going to let me, you know? Like, yeah. And I was like, bro, I told him, I was like, if you keep going, I will be forced to diss you because this is hip hop. You know what I mean? And he kept going. I'm like, okay, one more time. And I'm back in my head. I'm like, please tweet again. Like, let me do this. Cause, you know, I don't know. It was deeper than just him. Like there was a cultural shift going on. And there was an element of a younger generation coming into the fold and dominating the fold. And they had no respect. And I fundamentally had a problem with that. So he allowed me the opportunity to just make an absolute example out of him, and make a point in the process where it's like, yo, do what you do, but respect your elders. And, you know, if you don't, you know, this might happen.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm not going to say I single-handedly derailed Lil Xan's career, but
he's been quiet since.
Yeah, I definitely didn't help it for him. That definitely was a dent in his submarine. You know, he was already taking on water, but you know.
Yeah, dude. Well, let's keep it pushing down the raw thoughts.
But
line.
You know what? I will also say it's not like a personal grudge that I hold for life, and I hope that like he's learned from it and like is doing better in life, and hopefully he probably is super embarrassed by the personality that he had publicly. I heard he got clean or something. I saw like I saw something. So it's like I would sure hate for someone to only look at one period of my life and make all their judgments off of it. So I will say
fair.
That period in Lil Xan's life, yeah, he sucked and he faced the repercussions for that. But I also know that people shouldn't be like, I'm not saying he should continue to make music, but like he shouldn't be canceled or hated for life.
People grow.
You know what I mean? So honestly, I wish him the best, but he wasn't good at making music. So he probably should just stay away from that and find something else to do, you know?
We'll keep it pushing, dude. Next raw thoughts. Raw thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Next raw thoughts. So the next raw thoughts was 4.
Yeah.
So now this is like during the pandemic. This is when it's like, whoa, okay, everything's coming to the forefront. Now we're starting to see what the real power play is here. I'm starting to understand the full scope of all of this. Way more. I think that COVID and that whole shit, I think the one good thing that came out of it was it brought certain evils and corruption to the surface to the point where not only conspiracy theorists like me, but average people who just had a whole bunch of time sitting around at the house now that they were quarantined, they were able to see the picture too. And they're normally working too hard and moving too fast to really see this picture. So I think that Raw Thoughts 4 was a statement of that generation where we still didn't know pre-vaccine, but post-pandemic, you know, it was in that real weird, right around the election time. A lot of weird shit going on. A lot of weird shit's been going on since. Shit ain't been the same since 2020, man. It's almost like they kicked a fucking agenda into play called 2030.
Damn, dude. Yeah. Can we talk? Well, you know what I mean? I'm not as into the conspiracy theories, but I'm getting more aware. You know what I mean,
some people call them conspiracy theories, but like how many times do conspiracy theorists have to be right before people are just like, yo,
this is what's going on?
I mean, I'm not saying I'm right every time. And I also know when to separate what I truly believe is the truth and nothing but the truth, and what like, yo, I think this happens.
This is crazy.
You know, I know a lot of shit happens that some people would call me crazy for, but it's like, bro, all you got to do is look and see. I spend a lot of time researching this shit. Sometimes when people make an opinion about me or call me crazy, it's like they're saying it as if I don't have a history of pretty high fucking intelligence, of looking into this shit, of being aware culturally, societally, and having the extra time while everyone else went to work. I'm like, you know, I rap when I'm on tour, but I have a lot of time.
And the thing is, a lot of these conspiracy theories, like, people will talk about them for years before they're brought to light, where it's like...
Yep. And then they get brought to light, and no one comes and is like, oh, you were right.
Yeah.
We don't ever get that moment.
I mean...
People just act like they always knew.
Look at Epstein. Look at the Nickelodeon stuff. Yeah. I'm sure there were people saying that stuff for years before it came out.
Yeah. No, it's a dirty, disgusting, filthy world. And the entertainment business, like politics, politics is its own fucking thing. And it's all a fucking pony show. There's people really pulling the strings, and it goes deep. But like the entertainment business is a disgusting place, man. And like Hollywood, it's awful. I can't firsthand say that I've been around and seen some of the things that I think happen, like these conspiracies we talk about, but that's because I probably was never allowed to enter that realm. Like, people get felt out before they're brought into this shit. And obviously, like, I would never be down with some of the things that I've heard happen. And that's why I don't want to be in that world. I'm not equipped to live in that world. So, yeah, it's nuts. It's fucking nuts. So Raw Thoughts 4 really leveled everything up. That's when I would say that was like the reboot. You know what I mean? And like 4, 5 was also, 5 is very, vax oriented, because that was when there was like a ton of pressure. It's like, either get it or else. Like, you can't go to the restaurant. It's like, what?
Yeah,
you know how many tours I had to cancel because I didn't get the shot? Like, I had to keep canceling Canada. I felt awful for Canada, but I couldn't go.
You gotta stick to your guns.
I had to cancel a whole West Coast tour because, like, I wasn't allowed in the building of Sacramento because I didn't get the fucking thing. And they thought that putting these measures into place was going to force everyone to follow the rules. But a person like me, it's going to do the opposite. Not only am I not going to follow the rules, I'm going to scream it from the fucking mountaintops what the fuck is going on.
You've always been like that, though. It kind of goes back to your business model where it's like, you're in the Chris Webby business.
And, giving my speech in high school, I'm going to say what needs to be said. And if you tell me not to and that I shouldn't, then that makes me feel like it needs to be said even more so. So Raw Thoughts 5 really ratcheted up there. And then, Raw Thoughts 6 came out most recently. That one's really like a whole Last of Us mini movie. Yeah. And that one, in general, a Raw Thoughts covers a lot of bases, but there's like certain things that are the main cornerstones. And of 6, what initially set the spark for that was all the trains crashing. There was East Palestine.
Oh, yeah.
But during a certain time period, there was a train almost every single day in all of the near a water source, near farming, and they all had these toxic chemicals. There were, me and Knox were keeping a running list. We were texting back and forth with each other. It must have been like 25 or 30 within like a 2-month period. And they're just like, trains crash sometimes. It's like,
30?
Nah, bro, nah, they don't, though. Like, I'm not saying they never crash, but they don't, within this very specific, seemingly planned out timeline, does the entire fucking country get poisoned by chemicals in this way. So we're either under attack or we're attacking ourselves, but something the fuck is going on, and we're not going to know the effects of all that shit for years. People are going to get sick and die because of these things that happened for years. And that goes for a lot of shit. And then the bad guys get to slip away because no one died immediately, and then by the time everyone's dropping a cancer, this and that, they're nowhere to be found. So it's really, that was the spark, was all this train shit going on. And, I say that and I'm kind of like harping on it because a lot of people already forgot about that.
Well, people got to question more. I feel like people just don't question enough.
They don't question, or, the one thing you got to like understand about people too, though, and I have to sometimes remind myself, it's like, not everyone like has the time to really like focus on this shit, because it's dark shit, man. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not positive. I try to be a positive person, but when I think about this type of shit, man, it's like, it's really negative. Like, there's not much good to find when you start digging into like what's going on.
It's so bad that you don't even want to believe it.
So there's some people where it's like ignorance is bliss, for sure. But at the same time, you have to know enough to be able to protect yourself.
No, 1,000%.
And the ones you love. You know what I mean? You don't have to have your whole like doomsday set up at your house, but like you need
should be
to
somewhat aware.
Be somewhat aware, make the right decisions, you know, like know if there's poison in your food. Like some of the shit that they put out there on our grocery shelves have literal poison in them.
They don't even allow them in other countries,
Yeah,
dude.
it's disgusting. It's almost like they want to get us sick so that they could make a bunch of money off pharmaceuticals from us and then eventually have us die and make room for new people. It's almost like that's the plan. It's
Do you
crazy.
know that the U.S. is the only place where they advertise pharmaceuticals? They don't do it anywhere else in the world.
That makes sense, yeah. And listen, I've said in a song, direct quote, fuck Big Pharma, but I like some other products though. And, you know, that's the truth. And we can all be hypocrites.
Yeah.
So I can, like, it's fuck Big Pharma all day. That is such a part of the corruption that's happening, especially in this country. That's a huge pillar of the corruption. But I'm human. Yeah. I take Adderall. Like, I take some other stuff when I got them. You know what I mean? It's like, and you also, I guess what I'm getting at by that is nobody's perfect, and we can all be hypocrites.
Yeah. Well, speaking about poison to the body, you did a shoey in Australia.
Oh. That's a good story. Oh, I got to hit my vape before that one.
Yeah, that's crazy. You got to explain to the people what a shoey is, because probably most won't know.
This is a good story. I don't know. Have I ever told this story in a public forum? I don't think I have.
I don't know. I know I've heard it.
It's a good story.
It is a great story, dude.
So, in 2018, I went on tour in Australia. And, you know, obviously we're all excited, you know. Me, Santo, Smooth, we're seeing things that we had never seen. Australia, you don't get much further away. So, just the culture, everything, man. It was so exciting. First show is Sydney. And they start chanting shoey while I'm on stage. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? What is a shoey? You know? A shoe gets passed up to me. Now, let me break it down. What a shoey is supposed to be is where you take off your own shoe, you pour liquor into it, and you drink it out of your own shoe. I was passed a shoe. I was passed a foreign shoe. And this was no normal shoe. This was a disgusting, this was like a lawn work shoe. I don't know why this guy wore this shoe to my show, honestly. Like, this was a shoe that was meant to be like next to the front door for when you're mowing the lawn. It was disgusting. And they pass it up, and then the pressure built. Everyone's like, shoey. Now I'm holding this thing. I poured my own, because they were like, pour the, and I was like, all right. And then I'm holding it. I went to give it back. They're like, no, you. And I'm like, oh, shit. Now I'm on stage holding this disgusting lawn shoe with whiskey in it, and I have a crowd of people being like, no, you just drink out of the shoe. You know, that's a lot of pressure, okay? So I did it. And it seemed like, you know, it was disgusting. I think there was like some grit, some like dirt, sand that I had a little bit in my teeth. But we kept it moving, kept the show going. I gave this man his fucking shoe back. He put it back on his foot with whiskey in it, which... Now, the next day, I woke up with a rumbling in my tummy. I don't know what time it was, because the time zone is so different in Australia. It's like you literally warp to another dimension. But I woke up early as fuck, and I spent the entire morning until we had to leave to go get on a flight to fly across Australia shitting on a toilet. And when I say I was sitting on the toilet shitting, I was shitting the entire fucking time. It was insane. Like, it hurt so fucking bad. And I didn't think I was going to be ready to go get in the van and go to the airport to the next show. But somehow I pulled it together. I felt that I had shit out everything I could possibly shit. And then we get in the van and we go to the airport. We're about to board this plane, and I said, hey, hold up, I just got to go take a piss. I stood in front of the urinal, and the moment that my muscle unclenched to start urinating, I urinated out of my asshole. And it was just straight liquid down my sweatpants at an airport about to board a plane. What would you do? This is what I did. I ditched the underwear immediately. There was nothing to salvage.
Yo, this is crazy.
There was nothing to salvage there. I had to keep the sweats on, though. I had no access to another pair of pants. Luckily, they were black sweatpants, but you could still see where it was wet down the leg. And I'm talking down to my ankle, just wet spots. I did the best I could. I showed up outside. Everyone's waiting for me to leave the bathroom. I told everyone that I shit my pants, and then they like chuckled, but then they were like, no, seriously. You know, and they were like, are you kidding me? I was like, no, I really shit my pants. I have shit on and like kind of still in my pants. I then, poor Santo, my DJ, I had to sit next to him as we flew across Australia, and I had shitty sweatpants right up in his personal space. And you know, I still apologize to him for that sometimes. Funny enough, I was wearing those very same sweatpants a few days ago. And some people, I've been called disgusting for bringing them back. I forget, I think it was an ex-girlfriend. She said that's a disgusting end to the story. But at the end of the day, I liked that pair of swatpants.
And they also have a story now.
They have a story. And it's a great pair of sweatpants. I literally was wearing them like 3 days ago. I washed them. Well, I had to take them back in a like double wrapped in a garbage bag, and then I washed them.
Yeah.
But I did travel, I guess, back from Australia with a pair of shitty sweatpants in my suitcase.
Those pants have seen some things, dog. They have too much character.
Yeah. That was like the only time I've shit my pants as an adult. And as far as a pants shitting story goes, I couldn't ask for anything more, you know? It was.
If you're going to do it.
Yeah. If you're going to do it in Australia at an airport and then have to sit next to your DJ for like 4 hours.
Saldo was the one who told me to bring up this story, too.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah. I need a second to gather myself, dude. Let's talk about touring in Europe, dude.
Yeah.
Because I was with you on that, too.
That was a really incredible time, man.
One moment I remember, too, and I brought this up with Fury, but I think we were in Switzerland and someone just holding up the Connecticut flag, dude.
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel, dude?
I mean, it's pretty far from home.
Yeah.
And we're a pretty little state. So to see that was
Impact.
definitely, that was super cool. That was super cool. And just Europe in general, man, you know.
Do you have any specific memories that come to mind right away?
Like, Europe is definitely the most foreign place. Obviously, Europe is very vague, but, you know, even Australia, for as far away as it is, it doesn't feel as different. Like, the people talk funny and whatever. You know, Canada feels like Northern America, you know?
Yeah.
And Europe feels like you're really like, okay, we're international for real right now. Like, different languages, different cultures entirely. And I had never been. So that was just so cool for me. And then to see just how people live out there, like a lot of these places got a lot of shit figured out that we don't here in America. And I think traveling makes someone a better person, kind of.
It just gives you a bigger perspective, I think.
Yes, and I think that's directly what it does, but having a bigger perspective makes you a better person. Yeah. And it's not like you're a bad person because you haven't traveled. It's just like, it makes you more understanding. Sometimes, you know, if all you've experienced is here, you know, even traveling the country helps. But like, if all you've experienced is like where you're from, your scope is so limited, you know, you don't really know what's the right way to be doing stuff. So I think going to a lot of these places, you see they're doing, like America's doing a lot wrong. We're doing a lot wrong, bro. We do certain things better than some places, I guess, but, and listen, I'm, like, proud to be an American on the one hand, you know, like, I'm a descendant of both, you know, Ellis Island Italians and Mayflower whites. So I am an immigrant myself very, very long ago. But it's important to love where you're from, because if you don't love where you're from, you're just going to have like a certain apathy towards it and just let it slide further into hell. So I do think it's important, like, yeah, there's so much that needs to be corrected. Like it's disgusting, to really look at the scope of this country, especially right now. It is bad. But if you no longer love your country, like, you're just not going to want to make it better.
You're just going to let it fall. You're just not paying any attention to, like, try to make it better and care for it.
Yeah, like, think about your own property. Like, if you own property, like, you're not going to litter. You're not going to let other people litter. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to, that's your land, So just, you got to kind of have that sort of an appreciation for it. Because I do feel like a lot of people are just like, yo, fuck America. And it's a really murky history, and it's really bad right now. So it's always kind of been bad. It's kind of built on corruption and has gotten worse in certain aspects and better in certain aspects too. You can't completely ignore the things that have gotten better. There's certain things, but those are more cultural shifts and not a credit to politicians or anything like that. It's more just like people overall get cooler and more okay with stuff. But even that can swing too far. We're not like, oh, now we're okay with everything. Like, it's like, well, like, let's there's got to be rules, and there's got to be a certain understanding and respect that we all have amongst each other. Yeah.
I have a tour story I want you to talk about. So for the people that don't know, Big Jon is your security guard.
Yes.
And he once took pepper spray to the face.
Yes. And we almost absolutely manhandled that security guy. That guy, it was after a Halloween show in Minneapolis, and everybody's packing up. And I was talking to some girl, like, I just had a big show. Like, I headlined, it was my show. All the fans had just been pushed out, so everyone's all probably congregating outside. A security guard comes up and tells me that I have to leave because I was vaping. And I said, oh, dude, my bad. I won't vape anymore. Like, totally cool. He's like, no, you got to go. You got to go, bro. And I'm like, bro, I can't go. I just performed. Like, I literally, like, can't go outside right now. All the fans are outside and shit. Like, I can't you can't kick me out like a normal person. I just had a show. Like, were you not here? Like, I won't vape again. My bad. Like, but this guy... Man, this guy was the biggest dickhead I think I've ever encountered in my entire life. One of those guys who was just always big and just turned into a fucking bully because they never had to have any repercussions for it.
Yeah.
And he was trying to kick me out of my own show. And obviously Big Jon intervened and put a hand on his chest. And this guy...
0 to
reached
100.
in his pocket and pepper sprayed Big Jon at point blank range in the eyes. And Big Jon went like this and just kind of like that pit bull stance. Like, okay, now anything is on if you so choose. I grabbed the bottle of whiskey. Rook grabbed his fucking camera. What are the things you put the camera on?
Oh, this gimbal?
The stand, tripod.
Yeah.
He grabbed the tripod thing. The openers all start circling like the three hyenas in Lion King. Everybody's, Smooth's just ready.
Drumsticks in hand.
Santo was about ready to throw his goddamn DJ equipment at this guy's head. We were all ready to kill him like a pack of hyenas because it was such a deep, deep level of disrespect that, like, no one could really believe it. And then he didn't apologize or anything. So we just all circled this guy. And I am all about de-escalation. I am not a fighter. I think, resorting to physicality is, very archaic. There's always a better way, Well, this guy put that theory to the test. And I was right. I looked at Fury and I just remember being like, I'm okay with all of us going to jail tonight if you are. Like, this guy deserves it that bad.
Yeah, to do pepper spray at point blank is crazy.
Yeah, after, like, especially the interaction before that and everything, it was like, I made sure that it wasn't just a miscommunication, right? I was like, no, let me explain to you everything. He didn't give a fuck. I don't know where he was if he didn't see the show. I think he was mad I was talking to some girl or something. I don't know. But anyways, the rest of the security force had to come and surround this guy and, like, bring him away because we were just like... It takes a lot to make me angry like that. But the end of that story is, we ended up not doing anything crazy, not going to jail, probably for the best. The next night, the owner invited me back because I emailed him and said, I won't come back to your venue if you don't fire this guy immediately. I've never, ever in my life left a bad Yelp review, ever suggested that someone fire someone else. This is the only time I ever did that. That's how disrespectful this guy was. So he invites us. He's so sorry this happened. Come back. We're having like a post-Halloween party or whatever. So we go back. This same guy, we see him. We're up in the balcony and we see this guy walk in off duty. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You know what I mean? Are you fucking kidding me? This guy is fucking... So I'm like, Big John, yo, we got to go find this guy. Ends up, he got kicked out pretty quickly. The owner said he had to leave. He went outside, picked a fight with someone. That person broke a bottle over his face and split his entire face open.
Oh, wow.
And he had to get rushed to the hospital.
That's crazy, dude.
That is karma is what that is.
I did not see that plot twist coming, dude.
So without us doing anything, which is, of course, always for the best, you never want to get in trouble, get arrested, especially in other cities and shit like that. And like I said, physicality is, you should never have to stoop to that level, but sometimes someone's got to, and you know, whoever broke that bottle over that guy's face, like, thank you. Well, that guy deserved it.
The thing too is like, if you're that kind of person and that's the energy you bring, it's just gonna come right back around to you always, back to the karma.
And
you know,
and I know people who can be like quick tempered. I know people who can be kind of asshole-ish, but like this guy was the worst. So he, you know. Normally, I wouldn't say someone deserved to have their whole fucking shit split open, but this guy did. And I can say that with all honesty, and I feel okay about it. I'll sleep fine tonight.
Yeah, dude. I want to pull it back to the albums, too, because I want to talk to you about Next Wednesday.
So we went next Wednesday.
So this is like 2001 and Sell Your Soul.
Right. And this is where we really lock into the color scheme. So it's like the blue one, this one was the red one. And now it's like, okay, we're going to do colors, you know, like from this point forward. That year, the cover is me sitting on the back of the van, and that speaks to the year.
Yeah, all the touring we just talked about.
Yeah, that. I'm pretty sure that's the year all this happened on Halloween. And I would also say I think that was the shortest Wednesday album because of how much I was touring. Like, it was nonstop. So that year, very much unlike 2017 where I didn't tour that much and I had a lot of time to make all this music, 2018 gave me the counterweight where it's like, okay, now I'm touring too much to really do this comfortably where I'm dropping music all the time. So I have to level back out somehow. But also some really good music was made that year, so...
Yeah, I also want to talk to you. I got to bring up Echo, dude, because Echo's an artist that started touring with you and just has grown immensely.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I'll tell my version of the Echo tale too. Dear friend, such a good guy. He comes into the picture in
kind of around the time I started touring with you, like maybe 2017, 2018-ish, somewhere in there.
I think 19.
19, then maybe, yeah.
I think 19.
Maybe that's when I started touring with you too. I don't even know.
Yeah, it was in the desert.
I did World Wide Web. That's kind of where I hop into touring with you.
And he was on that one?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, so maybe that was 18. Well, the story of Echo is a story I love to tell, especially other artists, because it's the perfect example of like what to do and how to do it right. And Echo is arguably the first artist who really like listened to the advice that I had to give and really put it to use. Like really listened, really followed through on it. He went from buying on to my first tour. And as he tells it, he had to borrow money from his girlfriend to buy on to my first tour. So, you know, a buy on, you don't normally like interact with as a headliner all that much. But we had been on the road for a while, like partway through the tour, you know, I pretty much up to a point had only said what's up to him and whatever. I thought he was like 24 years old. He's like, has that youthful, because he was new to the game maybe too, you know what I mean? I had like a decade of like this industry like aging my soul, yeah. And then we start talking and he's like pretty much the same age as me and all these common interests and shit. I'm like, oh, this dude's a cool dude. So it went from him buying onto the first tour to then we're just like, yo, let's just take him back out. I liked him. To the point where it's like now we're making music together. Like he's getting paid to come on the road with me. He's doing his own shit. He is now like blossoming into a really incredible artist. I think his music has come leaps and bounds from when I first met him, which that's a testament to him. But really like he paid attention to those initial steps and did what needed to be done. And he really followed through on it, and I'm really proud of Echo. I think he's doing like such a good job. And it's to the point now where, you know, I was the sensei and he was the apprentice. And now there's some situations where I'm asking him when it comes to like technology shit. I'm like, yo, how do you TikTok again? You know?
Yeah.
And he knows like this whole other side of things, you know? So it's like, he's a great dude. Anyone who's been to one of my shows that Echo's been at, you can just tell how much fun we have together. Just like when he comes out on stage or when we're doing meet and greet, like we're making each other laugh like the whole time.
Yeah,
he's such a good dude. And you too. I mean,
it's
when it's me, you, and him in the back of the van,
that's
dude.
a dangerous combo, dude.
Yeah,
that
we're
is
just
like the most dangerous
cracking
combo.
jokes the whole fucking time, dude.
Oh, man. It's like, we can't talk about it. It's one of those things you had to be there, but, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is Ponka. But it's just... It's just like an inside joke that we'll let live.
A lot of inside jokes.
Yeah, dude. But another artist I want to talk to you about that you have, I think, a couple songs with, Jelly Roll, dude.
Yes,
I think you're on his project.
And he's on
yours.
mine, yes.
Yeah. So how did that come to be?
So I met Jelly, and he reminded me of this when I met him later in our career. And this is a testament to, like, be a good person to everybody. You know what I mean? I apparently had met him. We both had a show at Webster Hall the same night. And he was in the little room because he's from down Nashville. Like, he wasn't as known up this way. And I was in the big room. But I made it a point to go down and say what's up to him because they were like, yo, Jelly Roll's downstairs. And I'm like, I know that name. He's been around for mad long. Let me go say what's up. I didn't know that much about him, but I knew that he had been around for a while and he clearly was a hard worker and doing something right. And I wanted to just go, you know, not that I'm from New York, but I'm a Northeasterner. I wanted to go show some love. And we shot the shit for a little bit. And I completely forgot that happened. And then when I met him again down the line, he reminded me of that. And he was like, man, that meant a lot to me. And I appreciate it. It showed a lot about your character. And I said, thanks, man. You know, I don't remember, but I'm glad that happened. And then he returned the favor by getting us, when we went to Nashville, like $700 of hot chicken.
Oh, amazing, dude.
He brought us more chicken. It was just like literally like an entire poultry farm. It was such a nice gesture. I've since seen him, you know, when he's been in Connecticut, whenever I am. I missed him last time, which bummed me out. But he's such a good person. And he is now in such a high seat of power in the music industry. It gives me hope that maybe this entire industry isn't all dark, that someone can rise to such a high level and be a good human being.
Yeah.
Because I had seen this game the opposite. And it seemed like to get to a certain place, you had to be part of that game.
He is like a beacon of light, too, because seeing him level up, dude, I mean, I know that I'm inspired, too, and it just shows to, like, longevity, shows to that you don't have to be in the dark side of the industry. I don't know. I only have good things to say about Jelly.
And I say that because he's in, like, the industry.
Yeah.
And he's at the top. And you know, I'm super proud of him. It has been such a pleasure to watch him dominate this whole fucking game, man. Especially, I think he's got a lot of rappers rooting for him because he was buddies with a bunch of us. And he comes from these same trenches we do. So he's made this brilliant transition into country, which isn't a forced transition. That's what speaks to his soul.
Seamless,
you know what I mean? It's like, it's not some calculated, like, oh, we're going to do this because it makes money. It does, obviously, it turns out. But that's what was speaking to him creatively. And that's who he is. So to see him go from these trenches to just blossoming into this superstar, man, it's like, it's been really, really nice to watch because it's good to root on a good person and see them win, because a lot of times the people that win just aren't, they're the ones who cut corners or cut ahead of people.
Had to step on somebody to get there.
Yeah. And Jelly is a good motherfucker, man.
And it goes back to just being authentically yourself.
Yeah. Yep. He is. And that also goes to show that sometimes it's better to wait until you're ready. You know, earlier in his career, someone could have said, oh, you're going to have to wait for your moment. And he might not have been trying to hear that. and I would have said the same thing, but it turns out it was for the best. And I'm sure now, looking back, he would agree that it all happened how it needed to happen. It's happening for me on a much different scale. Obviously, I'm in a completely different world, but it's like all of these things are starting to work out for me when I'm mature enough to deal with them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, and he wasn't, quite frankly. You know what I mean? Like this is a lot of weight to carry in terms of the intensity of this job. But yeah, man, Jelly Roll's the man. I've met a lot of really, like, this circle of rappers that I'm friends with are really good guys, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's like this camaraderie between a lot of the guys that you've heard me do songs with, frankly. You know what I mean? A lot of the guys who have been on my songs.
They're not just collaborators, they're friends as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you got like the big ticket guys where it's like, yeah, I don't know Busta Rhymes like that, but like that was so incredible to have a song with him and shit. But you know, like the Dizzy Wrights, Jaren's, Locksmith,
and it comes
Echo,
with a lot of
course.
touring with too.
Yeah,
like,
I tour with these guys. When you've toured with someone, it's different.
You really see them when you tour with them. There's no really hiding, because when you're on tour with somebody, you're getting them all best, worst, like you're just what it is, you know?
Yep.
And it's also just important to keep a good vibe while you're on the road, too.
Yes. Very important. Very important. Otherwise, that shit will start to tax.
Yeah.
But that puts us at the Yellow album, so that puts us at Wednesday After Next, and that is the one that Jelly's on. And that one, that cover, I'm wearing like a suit and tie, because that was the first year where it's like, okay, all these pieces we put into place to start this rollout are now starting to translate into like actual money. And like, finally, for the first time in my career, I'm making more than I'm putting in overall by a large enough margin where it's like we're having money conversations about what to do with some of this extra stuff.
And this is over a decade in the game already.
And yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just to put it in perspective for people, like this wasn't like an overnight. This was hard work. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Yeah, I just need to make that clear.
Yeah. Well, if you cut the rest of the interview and just post this clip, no, man, it has been a journey, but it was not overnight. And even at Wednesday After Next, you know, this is when I'm starting to have a little bit of extra money, starting to be able to do some different things other than immediately reinvest in myself. You know what I mean? So that's an important year, and you learn about that because you also have to have like wealth management skills and like have trusted people, because like money comes and money goes, dude. Like taxes are insane. Like you have to diversify your portfolios. Like granted, when you don't have it, you don't have to do any of that shit. But when you do get it, like take advantage of that time, because doing this, you don't know how long this is going to last. I would think I'm durable and built to last, and I think my legacy kind of proves that. But nonetheless, you know, shit could change. Streaming could change.
That's what I'm saying,
in a way that's not in my favor. You know what I mean? We got a great thing going on right now with Spotify, but there could be like a cultural shift, and I could not be as profitable in whatever's next. So you gotta
adapt,
but also like be smart with it when you get it, you know? But always reinvest. That takes us into 2020.
Yeah.
Which is like...
there's a lot to talk to here, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in 2020, I started the year with a company-wide retreat in upstate New York, and it was so dope. We made some incredible music. It was up near like Woodstock, New York, on this big farm, and I had everybody come up, creative side, business side, and I'm like, all right, we got an empire here. You know, all my guys are here. Let's like discuss what we're going to do for the year. Let's plan everything out. 2020, we're going to do it fucking huge.
Obviously, what happened, dude. Let's talk about it, because there are a couple of things that happened in quarantine. And I was with you in quarantine for a hot second, dog. I was kind of part of your pod, as they called it at the time.
Yes.
You know, when I think of quarantine, there are a couple of things that I think of. Farley with his microgreens.
Those things were good.
They were great. They were phenomenal. You know, if we're going to talk more about Farley's cooking, his eggs that he was chefing up. Like
Those were good eggs.
those are great eggs.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time
in quarantine.
So
dude.
here's the thing, too, because, it's like, I don't care who you were and what you think now. Obviously, I'm super vocal about this topic, when it comes to COVID and this and that.
Yeah.
But at first, when this shit first came around,
Nobody knew.
I mean, maybe there were some people who, share a similar opinion to what they do now that so much shit has revealed itself. But I'm not going to lie, as vocal as I've been, I'm also very vocal about the fact that, I was, totally scared at first, too.
Oh, well, because you had your entire livelihood ripped away from you, and as a lot of us did, touring.
Livelihood, and also, literally we're seeing Chinese motherfuckers having seizures on the ground, and they're like, this is coming here, and everybody's going to fucking die.
It's scary.
At that point, we hadn't seen this exact thing happen. So, I mean, I knew how corrupt the media was. I knew all of this shit, but I didn't see the full plan at the time. So, people were shook. People were shook.
Yeah.
And it was a weird time. So, it happened quick.
Very quickly.
And we went from having, all these fucking plans to just being well, I guess we don't leave the house anymore. And, it's only who you've already seen, and we had already seen you. Yeah. So, you were coming over a bunch, and what a weird fucking time.
I want to bring it to Web Sesh, dude, because what a
weirdest thing I've ever spent all of my energy on ever in my life. We spent so much energy on this thing because we had nothing else to really do. And I guess I'll explain it for those who didn't see it, because it's kind of hard to explain too. Pete Davidson had been over to record Who Am I kind of right before COVID and all of this. So, we were still talking about the song and shit, and then it was quarantine time. I usually do something for 420, do a 420 show, so I'm 420's coming up. I think Farley had the idea to do this live stream. And I don't think he even understood the depths of what he was suggesting and how seriously I was going to take this. And then how seriously I was going to make you take this.
Dog, I was living in your basement, dude. I was fucking Gollum down there.
Yeah, that was insane. So I convinced Pete Davidson to co-host this thing with me. And we're gonna bring live guests on. But I wanted it to feel like a show. So it's more than just bringing on live guests. It'll be a fundraiser for, I don't even remember.
We weren't allowed to say the charity because they didn't want to be associated with weed.
Yeah, it was some help the kids or something, but we couldn't, I don't even remember what it was because we weren't allowed to say it. So there was money generated and it did go to them, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even fucking remember. I just remember the fact that wasn't my department. My department was sitting with you thinking of the weirdest, wackiest fucking things that we could fill all of this extra space with in between all the interviews.
It was like a variety show in a way.
It was like a variety show. Not in a way, in every way. We had everything from a harmonica solo by Ron Jeremy to, oh God.
Gilbert Gottfried as a goose, dude. We typecasted him, dog.
We made Gilbert Gottfried a goose, yeah.
Rest
I think
in peace.
did Jitta make a goose?
So Jitta made the goose animation, and then we took his animation with the Gilbert Gottfried audio and sandwiched them together.
That's the definition of what that time period was. That's the type of shit we were spending hours on. Was pairing Gilbert Gottfried's fucking Zordon from the Power Rangers. We had Gary Busey do a shout out, and we sampled Gary Busey making this weird noise at the end. And then I made a song out of Gary Busey about Gary Busey, and JP made the beat, and we shot a music video for it. It's called Gary Busey. Go on YouTube right now. Watch it. It's insane.
420 will remember everything, dog.
There's certain lines from the web sesh that I still get stuck in my head. I've tried to explain the web sesh to people in times since, and it's really it's impossible to fully explain. We had Jelly Roll on there.
Jelly Roll, Mercules, Justina.
Justina, we had the
MGK, dude.
MGK. We had the Kevin Smith.
Oh my God, yeah, Kevin's bro. all-star lineup, really.
Yeah, the guy we paired with the guy Josh who owns Raw.
Yeah,
and he helped us pull some of these plays together. He definitely got Kevin Smith. It was just like it was nuts, and then we put all this time into it, and then it was like actually go time, and we have to broadcast this to the whole fucking world. And I remember, like, it didn't work.
Right away, yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah, it didn't work immediately.
We had all this build-up, and we're like, dude, and now it's going down now.
I remember Pete going to me. He's like, Mike, what's going on? He's like, it's giving me anxiety.
Yeah, 'cause Pete's not here. He's there. Originally, we were going to be together. Now we have to fucking, like, Zoom us together to the whole world. And, like, it was a rocky start. It was like, the entire time was like a panic attack. But...
With commercial breaks.
Commercial breaks of absolute insanity.
Yeah, dude, because it would be live and like in between it's kind of a crazy like logistical nightmare because, you know, we'd be live, it'd be you and Pete. We'd run to like a little segment of like videos of like Bob Saget, of Dog the Bounty Hunter, dude. And then it would come back and it would be like MGK in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the time that people were watching the other part, we're like panicking like, yo, accept the Zoom invite.
But because we had so much of this ridiculous extracurricular content that we accumulated through both favors and the website Cameo, we had so much commercial break time. The commercial break time ended up being the best part, in my opinion. There are some of the things that are in there that are funny as fuck, man. The Ron Jeremy thing in particular.
With the what happens next?
That was so good, man.
Yeah.
That was a moment of your brilliance.
It's
It's really hard to describe. I mean, how long was it?
It was like hours. It was like a couple hours. It might be like 3 hours, dude.
Yeah, it was
it's
about as
still
long
on
as this
YouTube.
fucking podcast.
Yeah, you could watch it, dude.
Yeah. And then it like something with the upload got messed up, so the original one isn't the one that was up there. So like we lost all the traction of the original one. And it was like, are you fucking kidding me? So we had to re-upload it, and we lost like all that steam because mad people were watching it when we aired it live.
Insane, dude, because it was such an insane thing. And it was like, keep in mind, the reason we were able to make it happen because everyone was home, but also everybody who wanted to view it was also home, dude. It was like kind of like it was kind of the same era as like Tiger King Spring.
Yes. It was one of the strangest things I've ever been involved with.
Yeah. How did you connect with Pete in the first place?
He grew up a fan of mine.
Oh,
so
amazing,
he had
dude.
reached out to me years prior, and then he just kind of voiced that he wanted to be, you know, he wanted to do a rap verse on something. I was like, well, yeah, come on down. Then, you know, through that, JP meets Pete. Then JP gets paired with SNL. He's doing a bunch of production work for them and like their music department. Got paired with Adam Sandler and shit.
For that movie too, yeah.
JP's such an incredible producer. You know, it's like I don't know how anyone could not see the value in that kid. He is a brilliant genius. So I mean, yeah, JP's been instrumental in this music. That's been through this whole Wednesday period. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it's also worth noting yet again as we're getting into like the fourth Wednesday album now. It's like I would say JP produced like maybe half of the first Wednesday. By this point, he's producing pretty much all
Touching
of
everything,
the album.
yeah.
And he is now like the in-house producer across the board, and the music is better for it, in my opinion. You know, it's kind of nice when you have like a control over things, even if like you get a beat from someone else, just to have it go through the JP system.
The filter,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's like everything
Cohesive.
sounds nice and cohesive. Yeah, exactly. He is brilliant, man. And I attribute a lot of the creative success that I've had as of recent with this Wednesday series with me being able to be in a room with that kid. And like me and JP working, sometimes we don't even need to like talk to each other. It's like we are so in sync that like we already know what the other one is thinking. I felt it a few times in life, and I think it goes to show like what humans really can be capable of. But when you really click with someone on a common goal or mission, it's unbelievable how you can create this flow where you're like communicating without even speaking. It's really crazy, and we've really fine-tuned that in the studio.
And you find that comes from just years of working together?
And us just like, we just click creatively. You know what I mean? Certain people click with certain people.
That makes sense, dude.
So yeah, man, it's been a real pleasure watching him mature as both a producer and a person. And you know, when I first started working with JP, that's like Webster's Lab too. I got sent a pack of beats that Jitta had. He was like, "Yo, check out this JP kid." And I'm like, "All right." I ended up using one of those beats. He was 15.
Nuts, dude. Yeah.
So it's like, just like I've known you for a long time. Like JP produced his first Chris Webby record when he was 15 years old. He was like a full-blown, like very important team member by like 17.
Yeah.
It's wild, dude. It's fucking wild. And that goes to show that I also appreciate that he's younger. I appreciate that you're younger. You guys are like hip to certain things that I might, like I am 35. I'm getting older. Like I'm not as in tune with certain things that are going on right now.
Yeah, and certain people are going to be on the pulse of certain things more than others. You know what I mean? So it's always good to like...
Yeah, I'm not on the pulse at all. Which part of that is the beauty of everything that I do. Is like, I don't give a fuck about the pulse, but sometimes it's good to know what's going on.
Yeah, dude. I want to talk to you too because we were talking about like money before, and I want to highlight that you donate to Big Life Africa.
Yeah.
And you donate to the Rainforest Trust, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I did that the year we did Our Planet. But yeah, every year I do Big Life. I also did the Rainforest. I think I've done that one a couple times. But every year I donate at least $50,000 to Big Life. Honestly, the last 2 years I didn't even post about it.
I just wanted to highlight that because I know you do it.
Yeah. And it's one of those things like when you do something good, it's like part of you wants to say out loud that you did something good so that way it kind of inspires other people to do something good. But there's always it always comes off kind of a certain type of way.
You want to do something good for the sake of doing something good.
Yeah, so that's what I do. I've always loved animals. That's like, animals and nature is really my first love, even before music. I just love the fact that there is wilderness out there. There are all of these incredible species, and there are places that are untouched by humanity, and they need to remain that way.
Yeah, no, and I honestly, like, I remember we shot, like, a video for it with Bria Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, like, a good, you know what I mean? It felt really good doing that. And
yeah.
It just inspired me, too, because up until that point, like, charity wasn't something that, I talked with this with somebody, but charity wasn't, like, something that wasn't, like, in the top of my mind, But, like, the thing is, I think if you're in the position to do something, you should.
And I'll tell you right now, if you're in the position to do something, you should for two reasons. One, for the obvious, it's a good thing to do. And it's important to live for something bigger than ourselves and to do something for a problem in the world that's bigger than ourselves. And the second reason is it's a tax write-off. So if you have the extra money, that's why I don't see being charitable with money on a large scale as making you necessarily a good person. Like when they say that about some of these billionaires, they're like, well, he donated, $2 million. It's like,
but there's some like benefit. Yeah.
It's a tax break and he has like $4 billion. So, you know what I mean? That doesn't make him a good person.
It's a drop in the bucket for him.
Right. And I would say what I donate is not a drop in the bucket for me, but it's something that I am passionate about. But also like financially, end of the year, if you're in a position to do so, it's advantageous for multiple reasons. Make the world a better place and, be financially responsible for yourself so you can continue to do so.
Yeah, I want to carry us through quarantine a little bit too because one of my favorite videos I've done with you was during quarantine.
Drugs in a Suitcase, baby.
It's a classic, dude.
It is. I love that goddamn video.
Dude, it was the setup for that was crazy. We have like this like green screen draped on the side of your crib. Like we got Farley there with the what's it called?
Leaf blower.
The leaf blower, dude, and like
remember that just like fell off at one point?
Yeah, dude, the video was so hoopty. But there's kind of something beautiful in that video. One, it came out great, but
yeah.
Outside of that, it's like kind of testament of like just do what you can.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that was a moment where big productions were stripped, like, couldn't really link up with a lot of people. So, I mean, do you have something to say about just like doing what you can?
Yeah, I mean, I think that regardless of whatever charade was pulled on us during 2020, and them shutting everything down, which I think for some people took away their livelihoods entirely, and that's really fucking sad. You know, if you had a brick and mortar business and you weren't allowed to open, you know, that's tough. You know, there's not much advice to give for a situation like that. But for entrepreneurs and people who just couldn't go to work now, it's like, all right, let's figure out how to maneuver in this new terrain. It kept everyone like, it made you have to be a little fluid and think different and not be, your normal regiment wasn't going to apply. Yeah. So it made people, it brought the best out of some, especially creatives. Like if you're a creative and you didn't capitalize on 2020, then you did it improperly. Don't be too hard on yourself, but you should have taken 2020 as like, okay, no shows, no none of this. Okay.
What can we do?
Yeah. And I think
web
that
sesh.
Yeah. Oh man.
But so this pulls us in the area of 28 Wednesdays later.
Yeah. So that one comes out, that cover. I got the spike bat and the gas mask on like 28 days later. Apocalyptic. 2020 was an apocalyptic year.
Yeah. And I think that was a good call on your part because you could have easily ended the series after like, 4, but
that was the plan.
Yeah.
The 4th album was supposed to be last Wednesday. So if the pandemic didn't happen, it might have been last Wednesday, but it didn't feel right to end it like that. So I found just kind of like another name. And actually, I got to credit my buddy Kyle McCormick up in Maine because I was like, well, if I don't call this one last Wednesday, what am I going to call it? Like, it's got to be something like something Wednesday. And he's like, 28 Wednesdays later. I was like, oh, yeah, dude, good fucking call. So at that point, I was like, what was once a 4-album plan is now extended. So when we get into 2021, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to end it yet. We could extend it again. I mean, there's always still Wednesday, Yeah. And that's what that one was. And that's the purple cover where I'm standing in front of my now home door in the cover. And that was a triumphant sounding album. That was a big year. I bought a house. Everything was like, it felt, purple's the color of royalty. It just felt like everything was, the world was opening back up. There were a lot of flutes in the songs because my buddy Brad's girlfriend Palma was there and she played flute. Flutes sound very triumphant.
We got to talk about one of the most insane records on that project, though.
Yeah.
The song with DMX.
Super insane.
How did that all come to be, dude?
I'm a huge DMX fan. Always have been. I actually have the X tattooed on my stomach. And it came to be because I wanted to do a song with DMX real bad. And then we got him this song and he loved it. And he sent a verse over and it was all going fantastically. He's the one who brought up the idea of we should do a music video. And the same day Fury had that conversation with their people was the day that he went to the hospital. And it was like, it would have been shocking either way because he's one of my like childhood idols. Even though he was such a troubled guy, I was always rooting for him and I liked him a lot as a person from afar as a fan, So now I have this very recent, very like personal connection to DMX. The song is getting mixed and mastered. There's so much excitement, so many conversations about it. And then that happens. It was just like really, certain celebrities die and they hit you different, like James Gandolfini for me, Tony Soprano, like that one, I'll remember exactly where I was, you know what I mean? And same thing with DMX, even though he didn't pass right away, like, man, that was just like gut-wrenching. And put pause on the record, which at that point I was like, whatever needs to be figured out, no big deal. Like, and they ended up coming back, whoever was in charge of that conversation, and we pushed the record through, and it was the last feature verse that DMX ever laid, which is really crazy. I mean, that is like dude. A piece of hip-hop history. And I'm honored in so many ways, and I really do think the song does it justice.
It's an incredible song.
Thank you. I feel like it's perfectly set up for him, you know, and I wanted to make sure that was the case. And then when we did get around to shooting the video, we did our best to pay tribute as well. And I think we did a good job of that too. We had the Rough Riders out there. We had the dogs out there. We smashed a car, you know, we had the bikers and you know, the four-wheelers out, and it was a moment. It was an emotional day shooting that. And
at every show, you're also paying homage to
absolutely,
DMX too. I see
of
you
course.
Guys throwing up the X's in the air.
Of course, dude. I mean, that song goes so hard live. Yeah, it's really nuts because I've seen like reaction videos of like some younger kids and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of DMX, and it's like, what? I've heard of DMX, like that, like blows my mind. He was one of the big guys of my era, but it's crazy. I guess that's just how it is, like generationally. But you know, I guess you had to be there. You should go back and do your history, but there is nothing like being there. It's like the Eminem that of my era, like you had to fucking be there, man. It was
dude.
crazy, but it was really like M and DMX, like those are like two of the biggest. 50.
Dude, I remember when you got that, so I was so mind blown when you got, like, when you originally hit me and you're like, yo, I got DMX. I was like, what the?
Yeah.
Dude, I have a fun story I'll tell you. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I had a get together at my house and I like brought it up briefly. I was like, oh, Webb's got a song with DMX. And then I had it. So I was like, I'll play it for you, but everyone needs to leave their phone out here. Like, I'm not letting you, you know what I mean? Like, I can't risk it. Like, if, you know what I mean? It can't come back to me. But I just remember just everybody, like, everyone's turn at this party. I'm just in there, sober Squires, and I'm just like looking at everybody. No one's got their phone. I'm just like, I press play. Everyone is just standing there in like fucking awe. They're like,
that song makes you feel something.
Dude, and it's such a like,
it feels like that era that I grew up in, you know?
And it's an incredible performance on both your guys' parts. Like, that record is just like a crazy, and, you know, just for you to have something like that in your catalog. And
that is a real pillar of the catalog, I would say. I mean, like, it's, as a student of hip hop, you know, ultimately above all else, at this point, you know, I make a lot of kinds of music. Hip hop is the common denominator, but like truly as a disciple of hip hop that grew up studying, respecting, man, that is about as wild as it gets. So
yeah, and I was with you when you performed on one of the illest stages in the country, dude. Red Rocks.
Oh yeah,
you opened, and I know Dizzy brought you out too before, right?
Yes, yeah. He brought me out to do High Grade one time, but yeah, I did do an opening slot at Red Rocks. That was dope. If we sell out Ogden this year, I want that sundown slot.
Woo,
you know, I
dude.
don't need to be a headliner, but I want that sundown slot. It was still bright as fuck when I did it because I was opening. You know, all due respect,
it was a crazy
of course,
lineup though too. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big show. I got kind of added last minute, but like one day to like have that slot. Because it's something magic about that venue, man. When that sun gets low, it's just like, whew, man.
Yeah, and how does it feel getting on like a stage like that? Because I know that's like one of the ones where you talk about it a lot, you know, growing up or like coming up in music, you're like, Red Rocks, you know what I mean?
Honestly, I would still say I haven't really performed there yet.
Fair.
You know? Like, I could just be like, yeah, I performed at Red Rocks, but I'm going to say, nah. I have, but like I haven't really performed at Red Rocks yet. So I'll let you know how that feels once I've truly, by my definition, performed at Red Rocks.
And just having like a set that like really feels impactful. I get what you're saying. Because like when you're opening, sometimes it goes by so quick and it's like you're here and there.
Yeah. It was cool. It was dope. I was grateful to have been given the opportunity. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to shit on it, but when I really have that experience there, like I said, I'll let you know.
It'll hit different when the crowd is like really like a full Webby crowd. You know?
Yeah, or at least like I'm billed as a because I do good in Colorado.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, dude. One thing I want to talk to you about is the song with Busta.
Yeah.
How did that song come to be?
I just wanted to get Busta on a song.
Dude.
Real bad.
He's
another one of my big like childhood favorites for sure.
Do you remember where you were when you played it for me for the first time? Actually, dog, it might have been Ponca City, dog. Did we stay at a casino that night?
Yeah.
dude, you were on one.
That sounds about right.
As they have as a tour, and you were just laying it down. You're like, Squires. Yeah, I think that's all you said. You pressed play, and I already knew that you had a Busta record, so I was like, yo, is this it? Santo's there with us too. But I remember that being a moment. But so how did like the record like come to be? Like, what was the flow on that?
That one is pretty standard. You know, with a lot of these older guys, you just got to go through the right conduit, which is oftentimes Fury for me, because he's, you know, he knows a lot of guys' managers, especially the New York dudes. We're nearby. So when it comes to getting those, I mean, there's a transactional element, but it's also just like,
It's part of the game.
for me, it not only is it part of the game, like it's a tax I'm happy to pay, as like I owe Busta a lot. I owe DMX a lot for like what they taught me, because those are artists that I studied religiously when it comes to creating my own style. I'm a big fan of Busta. I think Busta's really I think Busta is really underrated in the broad scope. I think people who know, obviously, but from performance to catalog, he's one of the illest, in my opinion. His performance game is very, very tight. Him and Spliff Star are definitely something to see. They really, him and his hype man, that's a performance as a rapper you watch and take notes.
Yeah. So that puts us, that we were at Still Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to Wednesday before last.
Right. So it's like, okay, we got to bring this train into the station at some point, but
We're getting there.
let's juice it one more year. Because if we're going to do last Wednesday, that means Wednesday before last, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that year, the cover speaks to a lot of what I was kind of dealing with. I just was a lot of shit. I have a ball and chain around my ankle, and I'm on the phone, and there's like a couch behind me with pills spilled on it, and it's just like I just look stressed out, and I was, just because, you know, settling into this new height. It's like, all right, you know, it's a lot, man, because it's really triumphant to buy a home at first, maintaining it, everything, dude. This is a lot of fucking extra things on the to-do list, you know, that paired with like the business is growing, but I'm still the one in charge. So there's so much stuff, so many irons in the fire. I have to like level up and evolve again, so I'm able to like handle the workload. And that's just what it's constantly been. But it's definitely a year of, I think a lot of that music on there has like a happy, like, let's all come together kind of vibe. Cause I was really trying to see the world like that, I think. And there had been a lot of raw thoughts, a lot of braggadociousness. That one is a little more like selfless in a sense. At moments, again, there's so many different songs on it, but certain songs jump out to me as like, you know, trying to be positive.
Yeah.
You know, which I think speaks to that year. I was just trying to be positive, but I was having difficulty doing it. But the music reflects like the positivity that I'm trying to channel in a dark fucking world with a million things on my to-do list where I'm just, you know, the pressure's getting to me. And I also know that around the corner, it's like, I'm going to have to end this fucking thing. Then what? Now we're asking life questions. We're asking like deep, loaded questions about what comes after Wednesday, you know? Because it's been easy not to think about it up to this point.
Yeah.
Still Wednesday? We could do at least Wednesday before last. Now it's like, oh, we're rounding the turn. I'm going to have to land the plane. So knowing that that's around the corner, well, yeah, I mean, here we are now at
Current day.
last Wednesday, which, I mean, people would have thought would have come out last year, but it didn't feel right. I didn't feel ready. And I'll start dropping again when I have my plan ready. I've been quiet. I've been off the grid. I have a beard. And that's okay, because I spent all these years doing something that no one's ever done. this album rollout and the way we've done it. I mean, yeah, there's so many wacky stories in my career and everything. Whole first part of this conversation, but when you really get to the Wednesday series, no one's ever done exactly this before. And to do something that no one's ever done before is, you got to end it right. And I refuse to end this like the other ones. Just kind of be like, well, here's the last one. Anyways, been great. Nah, man. We got to go out with the grand finale. We got to go out like the fireworks go out. And I got some plans.
You want it like the end of your favorite TV show. You know what I mean? Where it's like those shows ended great and like you got to take it to the end zone in a special way because you've put so much work into this entire project. It'd be a disservice to the series if you didn't.
Yep. And I mean, everything we did last year was last Wednesday oriented. So there's been a Raw Thoughts already. And that was, you know, there's been a lot of these things. But I had to sit back for a second. It's like, all right, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to like recalibrate. Because it needs to be more than just like dropping music and dropping videos. Like we need to bring attention back to everything that we just did. Because when you really look at it, the big picture of this whole Wednesday thing, I started it, like we said, like 2017, back at my parents' house with nothing after a whole run in the game. I'm back where I started. To here now with my own home, running my own business pretty well and doing my best and, you know, being a human, but at this point, pretty fucking successfully. A lot more successfully than the first part of my career. So, got to end this shit with a bang.
Yeah,
fireworks.
Dude. And one thing, in the meantime, I gotta bring it up, dude. You and I dropped a pretty fire record together, dude.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. Well, you got your own little fucking
adventure.
Yeah. You with your 50 states, man. You know, I was happy to help start it out. Only right to start it in the home state.
Had to kick it off right, dude. But yeah, like, you know, the project, like the 50 States project, is definitely inspired, like, you know, by watching you and other artists I work with, you know, see how they little by little put it together. You know what I mean? And show you that this is possible.
And the consistency. It's like, make a plan, stick to the fucking plan. A lot of artists say they're going to do something, and they do, and then they don't. And it's like, that's okay. There's false starts. It's no big deal. But, like, if you say you're going to fucking do something, and you do it with all intention, and you follow through to every detail like you do, where all of those album covers are, like, very cohesive with each other, and they're really dope. Like, that, you stick to that, and you hit all fucking 50 states.
It's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to start to bring this to the end zone. I know we've been on here for...
I went from having eaten recently to now being starving. That's how long we've been doing this.
Yeah, dude. Well, it's your fault for having a dense career, dude.
It's my fault for just being fucking scatterbrained motherfucker,
No,
dude.
You're good. I mean, I've been pulling you to all these places, but I mean, dude, it just shows how long you've been in the game, dude.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to, while I'm winding this down, I want to know what some of the best advice you've ever gotten was.
The best advice I've ever gotten. Well, off the top of my head, I mean, I've had some good role models, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that I had to experience in life that I didn't have any advice for on, and I had to learn by experience a lot. And I was raised really well. And I had strong role models, my parents, my grandfather. But like in terms of this and like the hip hop world and everything that comes with it, this industry, you know, my dad's a musician, but like the rap game, this is a tank full of sharks and there's no way to prepare for it. I mean, I'm the most financially successful person like in my like immediate family structure. So there's certain things when it comes to all that like I wasn't taught because I don't come from like a super wealthy family where like a super wealthy parent will teach their child how to be super wealthy. We had, you know, means. We didn't grow up, you know, with nothing, but like a lot of these things I've had to learn because I'm the first one in my line to encounter some of these things. Now, as far as like outside counsel, I mean, there's a lot of people who have given me a lot of good advice on various specific things. But one of my flaws is a lot of times I don't listen. I have to go learn for myself. And that's finally I've learned enough lessons where like I don't have to learn too many things the hard way anymore, but that's just how I always was. And once you make it out of a certain rough patch with that sort of a mindset, you'll be all right.
Yeah, and you brought up your parents, too. I want to talk about them real quick because it seems like they've always been supportive.
They have, yeah.
And your dad plays guitar with you on stage.
Oh, yeah. It's such an amazing thing. I mean, me and my mom are super close. I'm such a mix of my parents. Like, I have my mom's intense, like, organization, and she gets really fired up and passionate about things, and you know, I think that speaks to the raw thoughts side of me. And then my dad is super musical, creative, like silly, you know, and I think that I also am very much that. So it's like I need to be both of those things to be who I am, you know, like so much of the character traits and the things that people love me for may come from like my dad's side in terms of my character and things like that, but my business would fall apart without my mom's mindset. So it's like I am a combination of the two of them, and I notice that more and more as I get older. But they were and still remain to be really positive forces in my life, and I'm an only child, and I'm really lucky to not only still have both of them, but to have a really good relationship with them, you know. I have like an only child relationship with them. So it's like, I don't know. They were older parents, you know. My dad was 40 and my mom was like late 30s when they had me. So we didn't have that like young mom and dad like cool relationship, but we always had an understanding, and they are very cool people, you know.
Yeah, of course, dude. That's, I mean, they basically looped me into working with you, dude.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but there was always like a big age gap, you know?
Yeah.
I know some people, the relationships they have with their parents, like their parents were still like kind of kids when they had them. So they have a different, and being an only child is a super weird predicament to grow up in, but I'm really glad that I was that too. Just because it made me kind of who I am. Not kind of. It made me who I am for sure. And it made me very comfortable with being with myself and being alone. And sometimes you have to be, because that's where you're going to think of some of these great things. And when you're an only child, you learn to appreciate a good video game, a good book, you know, a good movie, because you have to entertain yourself, you know, not just content and little bite size, like really sit down and indulge and get taken away by it. You know, I read every morning. I don't know if you know that, but
I don't know that. But
when I'm on tour, when I'm on tour, I don't read at all. But when I'm home, I read every morning with a coffee before I really even get into my phone. That's another piece of advice. I think I've given like little pieces of advice throughout the course of this. Read before you look at your phone, because like you'll have a better day.
That's good advice. I could use that too.
Yeah.
My phone grabs me in the morning, dude. I feel it.
You got to do a glance. Be like, is there any emergency? If not, yeah, dude, wake up, fucking put that shit down, make a coffee, open a book.
Yeah, dude. So I want to talk to you as I'm winding this down. What do you see for yourself after Wednesday?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so...
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, that's good, too, because I was going to say, like, you've been on such a regimen and plan for these years. Like, does it excite you to kind of enter the unknown a little bit?
Yes, very much. Very much. I will say, with full honesty, I am fucking so ready to be done with the Wednesday series. It has been exhausting. It has been great for business. It's been great for the fans. It's been great for me as a person. But I am ready to move on from it. It's so taxing to be touring, dropping music, having to constantly be shooting videos for the music, and just always be dropping every 2 weeks, every 2 fucking weeks, and then drop an album with a merch package and all this shit, and then try to have a fucking life all within it, year after year after year after year. It's fucking exhausting. I'm not gonna stop making music, but I need to step away from like feeling like I have to be dropping music at all times to be happy, because that's not healthy either.
What makes you happy?
Well, a lot of times, it's releasing music is like where I get satisfaction. I've always gotten satisfaction from rapping for people, showing them my music, having, I watch reaction videos sometimes because I love seeing someone appreciate what I made. It takes me back to being in someone else's car and I put a song on and show them and they're like, yo, this is dope. That's like so much of what I do this for. Obviously there's money and other things, but like that gratification of like, I appreciate your art, it really is a huge part of it. And I'm trying to learn how to not rely on needing to release music to feel complete and to feel like I am happy, Like there's other things in life.
You just don't need the dropping a song to validate the happiness. You could be happy on your own.
Yeah, and I think I've learned a lot. I think really like over the past couple years, getting like a nice positive like girlfriend who's really nice to you. I've grown a beard, like I said. I think I just give less of a fuck about so many things that I used to fucking care so much about, and I'm a better person for it. Definitely. And definitely a happier one. But when it comes into like stepping into the unknown of After Wednesday, yeah, I'm a little nervous because I don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be whatever it is, man. If at the end of the day, this Wednesday series ends up being like my greatest creative contribution and that really is it, well then I better fucking kill it with this last album. And if I do that, I'm okay with that.
Amazing, dude. And my last thing I want to ask, what's your message to the world, dude? If you had like one thing to tell people.
Watch The Sopranos.
Amazing, dog. Well, Webb, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. My fucking back hurts.
I respect it, dog. I don't know. I mean, listen, when I invited you on, I didn't know this was going to be a 3-hour ordeal, but maybe it's for the best. I don't know.
Yeah.
It felt really good.
I think we said some things that made sense throughout the course of this.
Yeah, dude. Well, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Absolutely.
Woo! Let's go. I want to share with you guys my thought of the day. And my thought of the day is this. You have to be your authentic self. And I know this is like the traditional, you got to be yourself. But I am telling you, if you try to fake it out here, people can see right through that. Especially if you're out here trying to thrive as a creative. Being yourself is what's going to lead you to being happy and feeling more fulfilled. And y'all know my house rule. You got to believe before the world does.